There's no rum currently, but there should be some soon. I have already forged a partnership with Master Oldsim's only successor, his granddaughter, Hannah. She has set up her first brewery in Chaos City, and her first batch of rum will be supplied to Mamie Restaurant. She will be using the Master Oldsim's 50-year rum collection as a base for her brewery. I believe she will not disappoint all of you, Mag said with a smile. He even promised Hannah to test the brewing machine for her. As long as the machine could operate, the brewery could start production immediately, and there would naturally be rum to go about. Master Hannah is actually in Chaos City. Christopher was stunned. As an avid lover of rum, he naturally knew that Master Oldsim would be succeeded by his granddaughter, who was famous in the Fok tribe. Yes, anyway, everyone can enjoy rum in Mamie Restaurant again in no time at all. Perhaps you might even be able to buy bottled rum outside soon, Mag said with a smile and a nod. Sure, sure. Christopher nodded merrily as he walked into the restaurant quickly. He had already decided to call some of his drinking friends over to try the rum some days later. By the time afternoon operations ended, Hannah was already standing by the door, and looking at Mag expectantly. Boss, do you want to take a break? You obviously don't want me to rest. Mag pressed his lips together as he untied his apron, and put it aside. Even if it is so, I still have to ask. Hannah blinked, and urged Mag, let's set off quickly. There are so many parts I might not be able to assemble all of them in one afternoon. Let me get changed. Mag went upstairs to change into something that he could move more freely in. After that, he pushed his bicycle out as he left with Hannah. The parts had been sent to the brewery, and all that was left right now was for Mag to supervise the assembly. Boss, do you think it'll work this time? Hannah asked expectantly and nervously after taking a seat at the back seat of the bicycle. I can't say for sure. Mag shook his head. I can't say for sure if it can all light up at once. Sometimes, luck is very important. The steam train went through months of hard work from several engineers and designers before it could finally operate. Hannah's machine just came from a small blacksmith. It was drawn by someone who half knew what she was drawing. Who would believe it if told that the success rate was 100%? After arriving, while Mag was still parking the bicycle, Hannah had already jumped off the back seat, and was already hopping towards the workshop. Mag followed her into the workshop. Mabai and Lulu had already arranged the parts according to the order of assembling. The two appeared to have put a lot of effort into it, judging from their heads full of perspiration. Boss Mag, you're here, Mabai said with a hearty laugh as he looked at Mag and Hannah. It's been hard on you. It must have taken up a lot of time to arrange all these parts, Mag said with a smile. The time taken to arrange them is negligible compared to the time taken to make them. Moreover, there's quite a sense of satisfaction with putting them all out. Mabai shook his head. He looked at the workshop filled with various parts, and smiled with satisfaction. In that case, you guys can take a break first. I'll check the parts, and if all's good, we can start assembling. Without saying further, Mag started checking the parts. Mag was the one who designed it, and he did not even have to check the design for him to start checking the parts due to his outstanding memory. Needless to say, with Mabai's skills and his strict working procedure, each part was of the highest quality, and even exceeded Mag's expectations. After doing a final check on all the parts, and correcting the position of some parts which were placed in the wrong places, the group of people started the assembling work. This was the first stage of work at the brewery. Although there were many machine parts, it was not over the top. They could move on to a larger scale of production after passing the trial for the first stage, and ensuring that the machine could operate stably. There was no need to rush for wine brewing. For the entire afternoon, the group of four barely took a break, and they finally assembled all the machines. Done. Mag looked at the 8 horizontal pipes in the workshop, the complicated machines all arranged neatly, and the large wine vats on the ground. It was starting to look like a modern brewery. Wow, it's so cool. Hannah wiped away her perspiration as she looked at the brewery that she pieced together, her eyes gleaming. In comparison, the brewery that she made herself in the Fok tribe was simply a disgrace. Boss Mag, you're a genius, Mabai praised in wonderment. Although Mabai was the one who made all the parts, when all the pieces were put together to form the machines, the final look still astounded him. It looks great. Lulu also smiled foolishly. We'll do the tests tomorrow morning. I have to go back to cook. Mag glanced at his watch. After that, he smilingly told Mabai and Lulu, don't line up or cook later. I'll make a little more for dinner, and get Hannah to send some over to you later. Go back and have a good rest. I'll take such a good deal, then, Mabai said with a smile. Lulu smiled foolishly while stroking his head, likewise not rejecting. Mag got on his bicycle, and returned to the restaurant first. He made a few more dishes and a pot of chicken soup for Mabai, Lulu, and Zixie's dinner. After that, he got Hannah to bring the food over. So, Hannah, is your brewery starting soon? Yabimiya asked Hannah curiously during dinner. Yes. If everything goes smoothly in tomorrow's trial, I want to start work immediately. Hannah nodded. With an expectant smile, she said, I have not brewed wine in a very, very long time. I'm afraid I will get rusty. A new factory with a new machine, and even some new skills. You will need quite a while to get used to it, Mag said calmly as he dealt Hannah a small blow. It's all right. It was way tougher when I made my own machine back then, Hannah said with a smile, not caring. Chapter 1927 Should we do some workout before sleeping? Sean glanced coldly at the man, and said, You only have 3 days. Find that child, or die. Yes, the man answered quickly with a shudder. The man's gaze darted around for a while before saying, But, Your Highness, if we do that, will we infuriate Alex? I am afraid he will harm you. We have already pitted ourselves against each other. The only way to truly control or kill him is to have his child in our hands. A murderous gleam flashed across Sean's eyes. If it weren't for that useless Josh, he would have been dead 3 years ago. None of this would have happened. Yes. The man in black shuddered, and dared not to speak further. He bowed and left. Very quickly, in an inconspicuous, run-down courtyard at the slums at the north of the city, there were tens of men in black hidden in the dark night. Meanwhile, in Chaos City, even more men in black darted through the night in search of a target like a pack of wolves in the dark night. They had received a command to search for a 3-year-old child, a half-elf. You have to pay, otherwise Amy will be very fierce, Amy told a few demons who were high from drinking in a mature tone as she followed behind Anna. Why you? A demon said aggressively with a burp as he pointed at Amy. You are such a cutie pie. Here, little boss, this is our money. Count it. Another demon sitting at the same table slapped the demon, and handed a gold coin to Anna with a gentle smile. The demon who was slapped turned 2 rounds before regaining some of his senses. He stabilized himself, looked at Amy, and realized what he did just now. He quickly squeezed out an ugly smile, and did not dare to speak further. Hi, your total expense is 28 gold coins. You gave us 2 extra gold coins. Anna took out 2 gold coins, and returned them to the demon. It's all right. Little boss, you guys can buy some sweets with this. We'll be off. The 2 demons left with a light skip in their steps, supporting each other. What's wrong with you? How dare you shout at little boss? You almost scared me to death. The 2 demons only heaved a sigh of relief after exiting the restaurant. I didn't see her clearly. I had a drop too much, and my brain isn't functioning well. I was thinking of showing her who's boss for shouting at us. The other demon scratched his head awkwardly. You should drink less next time. Otherwise, we might just be banned from Mamie restaurant one day. That would be worse than walking around the slums. The two demons mumbled as they left, and the topic quickly changed to slums. Hee, I earned another gold coin. Amy placed her gold coin carefully in her pocket, and even patted it to ensure that it would not fall out. She smiled brightly. This is yours. You have to keep it. Father said that the money you earn on your own is yours. Amy quickly stopped Anna, who wanted to put the gold coin into the small money box, and helped her put the gold coin into her pocket. But this is already the 8th gold coin today. Isn't that too much? Anna asked Amy softly with embarrassment. It's all right. This means that we are cute and our service is good, Amy said with a pout. Anna was tickled by Amy. The moment she heard that someone wanted the bill, Anna hurried over with the small money box again. Amy followed behind Anna calmly. If it was a kind customer, she would smile adorably, and if it was a temperamental customer, she would give a fierce warning. As for the unreasonable customers, they had not appeared in a long time. Most of the customers in Mamie restaurant now knew that there was a very fierce little boss who won the champion's title at the Roth Empire Magic Caster Tournament. Little boss is really fierce. I saw her make a 150 kg demon fly with a punch before. That demon could not even retaliate. The customers at the adjacent table did not forget to gossip when they left. However, most of the customers tipped Amy and Anna willingly. The elf and half-elf were just like two sisters. One of them was obedient and pretty, while the other was cute and adorable. Just a little cute act would make anyone want to empty their pockets to buy sweets for them. Throughout the entire night, the two sisters who were in charge of payment basically had pockets full of tips amounting to above 1,000 copper coins. That was also the motivation for Amy to work every day. Although she was already a millionaire, the fruit of her labor made her even happier. I'll treat you and big sister Annie to a dried mini fish, 10 each, Amy told Anna. Anna thought for a while, and said, in that case, I'll treat with fried mini drumsticks. 3 each. Look, with money, anyone could speak with gusto. Boss, little boss, bye. After the operating hours, the ladies who had a simple yet filling supper bade their farewells and left. Mag reached out to pull the wooden door shut. Just as the door was about to close, his gaze fell on a faraway tree in the square. He had very good eyesight, and with the help of the moonlight, he saw a lump of shadows hiding in the trees, looking in the direction of the restaurant stealthily. Father, aren't you going up? Amy, who was carrying Ugly Duckling, asked Mag when she saw him still standing by the door. Let's go up to wash up, and get ready for bed. Mag closed the door properly, and locked it before walking towards the two children with a smile. After a really long story and finally putting the two children to sleep, Mag switched off the light, and exited the room silently. I think some fellows have got their eyes on us. The moment Mag stepped out of the room, Irina's voice sounded behind him. I think it's Sean's people. He's rather bold. But I'm curious. How did he manage to find us? Mag said with a smile as he turned around to look at Irina, who was standing by the window. I think he's just a little suspicious. Otherwise, he wouldn't send just a few pawns to watch us. Irina turned to look at Mag excitedly. Should we do some workout before sleeping? Mag looked at Irina, who had just come out of the shower, her hair let down casually. She was wearing a light, translucent nightgown, and a faint fragrance wafted over, making the atmosphere a little ambiguous. Should I go take a shower too? Mag tried to sound her out. Shower when you're back. They're just a few pawns. Irina took thin outerwear, and wore it over her nightgown before waving at Mag. I see, sure. Mag actually felt an inexplicable sense of disappointment. Many shops on the Aden Square were already closed, and the square was in complete silence. A few people in night camouflage clothes gathered under a huge tree. The man in black whispered, "Leader, after investigation, we found out that the owner of this restaurant has a daughter around 4 years old who's a half-elf. The leader with a square jaw waved his hand, and ordered decisively, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's catch and take her back right now." The order they received was to find that 3.5-year-old half-elf within 3 days, and not to let any suspicious target go when they were not sure. That man in black quickly said, "But this little girl's identity is a little special. She is Krasa Anurian's disciple, and even won the championship at the Magic Caster tournament a few days ago. Her power is above the 7th tier." "What? A 3-year-old 7th tier Magic Caster?" The eyes of the man in black with a square jaw widened immediately. Although the other men in black had covered their faces, shock could still be seen in their eyes. That man in black also gulped, and said, "She defeated an 8th tier Magic Caster, and won the Magic Caster tournament's championship." They suddenly fell silent. The men in black looked at their leader with a square jaw. The leader with a square jaw looked rather embarrassed. Fortunately, the black handkerchief covered most of his face. Although he was great at stalking, he was just a 7th tier knight. It was a little hard to accept the fact that they couldn't defeat a 3-year-old child. Furthermore, Urian is living in that magic potion shop next door. If we get too loud, we might disturb him, that man in black added. "Leader, she dared to appear in Rodu, and took part in the tournament in front of the king and everyone else. Moreover, there isn't any information that links her to Alex. She definitely isn't our target. Urian is the Lord of Ice, a 10th tier great magic caster and famous for his weird temper. If we antagonize him, and cause the plan to fail, I think none of us will have a good ending. Leader, should we change a target?" All the men in black began to ask their leader to calm down. "You guys have a point. I also think that she can't be our target. How could Alex have opened a restaurant and become a chef? Unless he is selling braised giant dragons' heads." The leader with a square jaw nodded, and then emphasized, "I didn't decide not to go because I can't defeat her. This concerns His Highness's big plan." The men in black all nodded. Obviously, they were all killers with no feelings. However, they were still afraid of death. Just like that, Mag and Irina were standing at the top of a huge tree close by, and they watched the black-robed figures retreating quietly with a weird expression. Irina said to Mag smilingly, "Seems like your cover is quite successful. Anyone with a normal brain would never expect you to be a chef, much less a chef with extraordinary culinary skills. I cannot pick my talents." Mag sighed, and looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle with a hint of melancholy in his eyes. "Let's catch up with them to see what they are trying to do." Irina leaped lightly, and drifted to the top of another tree 10-odd meters away. Mag could not fly. As someone with pure physical output, he could leap 10-odd meters if he wanted to, but he couldn't do it as lightly and gracefully as Irina. Hence, he could only jump down to the branches, and then leap from branch to branch. Judging from their conversation, these fellows obviously came for Amy, and they belonged to Sean. As for why they came for Amy, that rainy night attack 3 years ago explained everything. If Alex had a weakness, it wasn't Irina, who was equally powerful as him, but his daughter, whom he would protect with his life. A half-elf who wasn't even 4 years old yet should be very easy to control. As long as they could catch her, Alex's lifeline would be in their hands. Their thinking was correct. It was exactly like that 3 years ago. Amy was still Mag's greatest weakness, but this time, he wouldn't let anyone harm her. The black-robed figure's stalking skills were exquisite. It was obvious that Sean had spent a lot of effort nurturing this group of personal guards. However, techniques were nothing in front of power. Mag stalked them at a distance that wasn't too close or too far. They stopped in a courtyard at the south of the city. "Have you confirmed the target?" "Confirmed. A family of 3. 1 human, 1 first-tier elf, and a 3.5-year-old half-elf. They are all asleep. Kill the human and the elf. Bring the child away." A cold glint flashed across the eyes of the leader with a square jaw. 3 men in black leaped up, and landed in the courtyard. Razor-sharp daggers were pulled out, and with the cold reflection of the moonlight, they flicked open the door latch gently. Just as they were about to push open the wooden door, a gust of wind suddenly blew out from the yard, causing the dust and fallen leaves to swirl around. The black-robed figures covered their eyes instinctively. "All of you deserve to die." An extremely cold voice appeared next to their ears. All the black-robed figures paled, and grasped their weapons tightly as they looked around them. Without waiting for them to react, the fallen leaves that were flying in the air had already slit their throats. They could only make a low groan. "What's happening?" The leader with a square jaw heard the groans in the yard, and his expression turned grave. He was about to climb over the wall and enter. Right then, a hand appeared at his shoulder, and a low voice sounded right next to his ear. "They're all dead." Alex. The man with a square jaw in black froze, and his heart turned cold. "How many people has Sean sent to do such a thing in Chaos City?" Mag asked coldly. The man in black with a square jaw didn't dare to turn his head, but he knew he was already caught by Alex, and was already dead meat. He immediately smirked. "Since you guys are here, your daughter is most likely gone. If you let me go, I can help you guys find her. I want to know where your nest is, and how many scums like you are in Chaos City now." Mag stepped on the foot of the man in black with a square jaw. With the sound of bone shattering and the screams of the black-robed figure, the forward half of his left foot was already a mush of crushed flesh and bones. Beads of sweat gushed out on his forehead, and the extreme pain almost made him faint. "Where?" Mag's voice appeared again like a devil. I will never." Crack, crack. Mag cut his left hand into 18 pieces. "Kill me. I'll tell you everything." The man in black finally broke, and told Mag and Irina about their hiding place in Chaos City. As for how many people were acting in Chaos City, that was beyond his knowledge. "I hope you didn't make up the address, otherwise I will make you regret coming to this world." Mag made him lose all his teeth and the poison hidden in his tooth with one punch. Then, he held him with one hand, and went to the north of the city with Irina, who had cleaned up the scene. Chapter 1929 Sean, come out to die. These chaps' target was Amy, but they didn't know what Amy looked like, and where she was. Therefore, they tried their luck by catching all 3.5-year half-elf in Chaos City, and killing all existences that might affect their plan. For example, the parents of these half-elves. This meant that many half-elves could lose their parents tonight. Mag knew Sean was as shrewd as Josh, and as the chief commander of the border troops, he was way more bloodthirsty, and his methods were also way more despicable. Soon, Mag and Irina came to a courtyard at the north of the city. It's here," the man in black with a square jaw said limply. The pain from his body almost made him unable to speak. The horrible torture had already crushed his will. "There are 3 people guarding here. There is a cellar with 4 children inside." Irina narrowed her eyes before turning to Mag, and calmly saying, "I want to kill them." This wasn't a request, but a very calm statement. Mag had no reason to reject it. 4 children meant there were possibly 4 innocent couples killed, and half of them were elves. Those children became orphans just because they were around the same age as Amy. Mag twisted the neck of the man in black, and tossed him into the courtyard casually. He nodded slightly, and said, "They indeed deserved to die." The sound of the body landing in the courtyard attracted the black-robed figures who were guarding the courtyard. However, before they could react, they were already suppressed and rendered immobile by a terrifying presence. Irina and Mag landed in the yard, and pulled all 3 men in black hiding in different areas out. Fear appeared in these black-robed figures' eyes when they saw Irina. However, they could no longer control their bodies. They couldn't even kill themselves. "Where are the others?" Irina asked in a cold voice. "Kill us." A man in black revealed a tough expression, speaking with difficulty. Bam! A wooden chair exploded on top of his head, and his brains and blood splashed all over the two black-robed figures next to him. Fear flashed in the eyes of these two men in black. Although they were professionally trained, the fear of death was instinctive. "Where are the others?" Irina asked the two men in black again. "We don't know," a man in black said in a terrified voice. "Pfff." The jagged, broken wooden handle stabbed into his eye, and he screamed immediately. Irina looked at the last man in black, and coldly asked, "You don't know, either?" They all went to do their missions and catch those half-elves according to the list," the man in black said in a quivering voice. "Where is the list?" Mag asked. The man in black received some space to move, and he reached into his chest with his trembling hand. He suddenly moved faster, took out a red iron ball, and tossed it into the air. However, playing tricks in front of two 10th-tier powerhouses was a little demeaning to Mag and Irina. The chef's knife already slashed through the air, and cut the iron ball into countless metal shards as soon as the metal ball left his hand. The light that was blinking was also cut down by the chef's knife. Irina stepped the man in black into the ground with her foot before walking towards the cellar. Mag settled the black-robed figure, who was still screaming, and followed Irina into the cellar. "Mom! Mother!" The hidden cellar was opened, and the children's tender and terrified cries came from the pitch-dark cellar. Irina's steps faltered obviously. After a brief hesitation, a gentle warm glow appeared at her fingertips, and slowly fell down into the cellar. She leaped down too. The cellar was dark and damp. Judging from the soil, the cellar was only recently dug. The passageway could only allow one person to go through, and was 5 meters deep in the ground. However, it suddenly became spacious after getting underground. It resembled a miniature version of the underground dungeon. It was just that the cages here were small and stacked up together like little dog cages. Meanwhile, there were already 4 cages with children inside in a corner. Hearing the movements, the children's crying stopped abruptly. They were cuddling and shivering in a corner. They didn't even dare to make any sounds when they were sniffling, and recent wounds could be seen through their dirty clothes. Mag only took one look, and a raging anger was ignited in his heart. These children were only as old as Amy, but they suffered this unexpected calamity. They were caught and tortured inhumanely. Irina waved her hand to remove those chains on the doors. She opened the cages, and the gentle glow lit up those little cages. Irina approached the cages, and gently said to the children inside, "Don't be scared, children. I have already chased away the bad guys. I am here to take you home." The gentle glow and voice made the children muster their courage and look up. They only hesitated briefly before they ran out of the cages, threw themselves into Irina's arms, and cried, "All right. You're safe now. I will bring you all home now." Irina consoled them gently as she healed them with life magic, and put them into a deep sleep. "What do we do now?" Irina asked Mag. "Mobilize all the night elves who are above the 5th tier to guard all the half-elves in the city." Mag looked at those children sleeping soundly, and his voice became colder. "I will go look for Sean. I will go with you." Irina stood up. Mag shook his head. "No. You should go and protect them. You can find those men in black quickly. You can prevent one more tragedy whenever you find one more team in time." Irina pondered for a moment, and then nodded. "Help me give him one more strike." "Yes." Mag nodded and left the cellar. Mag didn't go straight to the city lord's castle. Instead, he went to the textile factory close by. Ozzy, who had moved into the textile factory from beyond the city, sensed something, and quickly flew out. Mag leaped onto Ozzy's back, and coldly instructed, "Ozzy, go to the city lord's castle." Ozzy spread its wings, and flew towards the city lord's castle at a low altitude. The combined investigation was still going on. Hence, as the Roth Empire's representative, Sean was staying in the accommodation provided by the city lord's castle, which was also the safest place in Chaos City. The purple-striped griffin hovered above the city lord's castle. "Sean, come out to die!" Mag hollered with his sword in hand. The booming voice reverberated throughout the city lord's castle. A commotion broke out. In a courtyard, Sean, wearing his soft armor, walked out under the cover of dozens of 10th-tier powerhouses. He looked at Mag on the griffin with a frown, and said, "Alex, why are you looking for trouble when we are facing a formidable enemy?" Chapter 1930 Alex's Absolute Domain. However, all the race's powerhouses had different expressions when they saw Mag standing on the griffin. They had long heard that Alex had already entered the realm of legend, but they didn't sense anything special, as he suppressed his presence yesterday. However, the Alex now was just like a razor-sharp sword that was unsheathed. He stood on the back of the griffin, and his terrifying presence actually made the 10th-tier powerhouses fearful. No wonder he could kill Weston with one strike of his flying sword. "I'm afraid Alex has indeed entered the realm of legend, and became the #1 powerhouse of the Norland continent," the goblins' representative lamented. Even though the other races' representatives didn't say a word, they didn't object to the goblins' representative's comment. "What's going on now? Why did Alex suddenly come here out of the blue in the middle of the night?" Michael pushed open his study's windows, and looked towards the guest house. He frowned, and then quickly rushed over. The peace meeting was due soon, and the matter of the devil at large had no clues, so they couldn't afford to have any other troubles right now. The 10th-tier knights and magic casters who were protecting Sean were staring at Mag with an extremely grave expression. The knights' hands were already clutching their swords, and the magic casters already raised their magic casters' staffs high up. Some even began to chant spells silently. With the previous example of Josh having his ear sliced away, they no longer dared to have any misjudgments or misconceptions regarding Alex. He was no longer the Roth Empire's general. Since he dared to slice away Josh's ear and issue him a death threat in front of everybody, he would dare to do the same to Sean. A few of the 10th-tier knights hailed from the army, and had interactions with Alex before. However, the current Alex made them feel even more undefeatable. Even though they had 4 10th-tier knights and 2 10th-tier great magic casters, they didn't dare to guarantee that they could stop him. Sean stared at Mag with furrowed eyebrows. He could guess why Alex was in a violent rage, but what he was thinking of now was whether his subordinates had succeeded in kidnapping Alex's daughter. Otherwise, why was Alex so furious that he came straight to the city lord's castle? This was Chaos City's city lord's castle. Sean was the Roth Empire's representative and the first prince of the Roth Empire, and was the most likely to become the future king. Chaos City would definitely not sit back and watch Alex attack him. With that in mind, he felt a lot more relieved. Sean looked at Mag, and said in a low voice, "Alex, you were once our Roth Empire's Northwest General. Before I came, my royal father even," looking at Sean's face, those 4 pitiful half-elf little girls in the cellar appeared in Mag's mind uncontrollably. However, he was still trying to pretend nothing happened, and even tried to talk about the past with him. "Stop your f***ing nonsense!" Mag roared, and pulled out the Tiandu sword from behind his back. Lightning flashed across the surface of the Tiandu sword and made a thunderclap. Mag stepped out, turned into a blur shadow, and instantly appeared in front of Sean and his men. "Protect His Highness!" The knight standing in the leading position roared angrily, and dashed out to stand right in front of Sean. He pulled the sword at his waist out, and slashed forward with a solemn expression. The red sword's beam extended out for 3.5 meters, and the slash made the empty space vibrate. 2 other knights suddenly attacked from the flanks. They, too, pulled out their long swords, and stabbed at Mag. The last knight stood in front of Sean with his sword held across. He didn't rush forward. At the same time, the 2 great magic caster had already completed their preparations. A water domain engulfed Mag, and held back his advance. Meanwhile, the ground rumbled. A pair of giant rock hands stretched out, and grabbed Mag's feet. In the blink of an eye, Sean's bodyguards reacted. 6 10th tier powerhouses launched an attack at Mag together. Furthermore, their actions and methods complemented one another. Obviously, they had practiced this combined attack before, and it was specifically targeted at Alex. The eyes of all the powerhouses widened. They all wanted to see how powerful Alex was now, and whether he could get out from the combined attack of 6 10th tier powerhouses. Sean took a step back, and was also looking at Alex coldly. These 6 10th tier powerhouses were specially selected by the king, and the combined attack was specially designed for them. Although they didn't have the time to perfect it, it should be adequate to protect one person. Sean was very clear that his current trip had two other more important objectives other than investigating the Devil's incident. The first was to capture Alex's weakness, and the second was to test Alex's power. However, if he couldn't even break through an imperfect six-man combined attack, then he would become a negligible threat. There were always over 10 10th tier powerhouses guarding the Roth Empire's palace at all times, not to mention the king had other preparations too. Even if Alex had really become a god, there had to be an upper limit. The combined attack was complete, and a sneer appeared on Sean's lips. Although Alex had become more powerful, he still couldn't change his immature and arrogant character. He stepped into the trap that Sean had prepared for him so easily. The water domain made Mag feel as if he had fallen into the deep sea suddenly. The scary pressure and physical heaviness had indeed caused Mag to slow down a lot. The giant rock hands underground began to close up to grab his feet. At the same time, the long swords coming from 3 different directions were also gleaming with swords beams. That's all. There weren't any signs of panic on Mag's face. Instead, he smiled contemptuously, and then slashed his sword forward. The water domain was slashed open, and it instantly crumbled. Mag's slowed down figure immediately sped up, and he stepped over those giant hands that were gleaming with a black glow. The long sword was turned around, and placed across his chest. Lightning flashed. Accompanied by a roaring thunder, it swept across forward like a giant slab of stone. The 3 knights who were attacking with their swords went white, but their attacks were in full force, so they had to go head-on against that giant long sword that came sweeping over. Boom! After a dull thud, the 3 of them only felt the terrifying force transferring over to them from their swords. Their long swords bent at a scary angle before breaking up completely. The broad long sword returned, and smacked the 3 of them, sending them flying away. The front was instantly clear, with only 1 10th tier knight, who looked shocked, and Sean, who went white as well. The knight attacked. Mag attacked too. The long sword snapped into 2. That knight slowly knelt down with his heavy sword on his shoulder. He threw up a mouthful of blood, and collapsed to the ground. Sean wanted to back off, but the heavy sword was already raised and pointed at his throat. Sean's retreating figure instantly froze. The remaining 2 great magic casters immediately stopped chanting too. Within a sword's length was Alex's absolute domain. Nobody could be faster than him. If they couldn't see what happened during the fight with the devil clearly because of the lightning, and killing Weston with the flying sword and taking Josh's ear were a little unexpected, then Alex was now facing 6 10th tier powerhouses, who specially practiced the art of a combined attack, and had come well prepared. However, they still couldn't stop Alex. They were defeated before they could even display the real power of a 10th tier powerhouse. Sean stared at the familiar heavy sword, which was only a few inches from his throat right now. Although the sword didn't have a sharp tip, Sean sensed a never-felt-before threat of death. The Tiandu sword never slew an unknown person. There were already more than 2 digits of powerhouses who had died under this sword. Many of them were famous on the Norland continent. Sean swallowed, and said to Mag as calmly as he could, "You cannot kill me." Yes, it was cannot, and not don't dare. There wasn't anybody that Alex and Irina didn't dare to kill in this world. Everyone understood that rationale ever since the 2 of them became famous on the Norland continent. Mag looked at him, and coldly said, "As long as I want to, I can kill a god just to demonstrate for you." I'm not a god, but I know that if I die, the Roth Empire's cavalry will ride all over the Norland continent 2 days later, and the racial war will be reignited. Many people will die with me. Sean looked straight into Mag's eyes. You know very well that my royal father isn't someone who will be threatened. Mag frowned under his mask. He knew Sean wasn't bluffing. Even though André Edward wasn't the Roth Empire's founding emperor, he was the most pragmatic and the most capable emperor in the Roth Empire's history. He made the Roth Empire a super empire that had 1 million cavalry and a good number of magic casters within a few decades of hard work and good administration. A king who was so forethoughtful wouldn't give up his objective that he had worked towards for decades just because of a powerhouse's threat. A demigod was eventually still not a real god. Even now, Mag was still not confident that he could enter the palace to kill André. Since André has sent you to Chaos City at this time to antagonize me on purpose, it seems like you are not his first choice. Do you think he would really go against the world for you even if I killed you? Mag asked him back with a smirk. He pushed his sword forward a little more, almost touching Sean's throat. A drop of blood dripped from Sean's throat, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. His breathing hastened too. The 10th tier knight who was sent flying earlier got up, and nervously shouted at Mag, Alex. You will be the enemy of the Roth Empire if you hurt the first prince. Think about it properly. The Roth Empire's powerhouses were all staring at Mag nervously. They would be definitely punished if something happened to Sean due to their incompetence. The other representatives didn't make any comments. Although Alex had already left the Roth Empire, strictly speaking, this matter could only be considered as the Roth Empire's private affair. They shouldn't interfere. Alex, no. Right then, an urgent voice sounded from afar, and in the blink of an eye, Michael rushed to them. Michael looked at Mag, who was pointing his sword at Sean, and stopped about 3 meters away. Pressing his hands down, he said, Let's talk things out. Put your sword down slowly. If there is any problem, let's talk first. He had thought Mag was simply scaring Sean, but after seeing the Roth Empire's 10th tier knights lying on the ground and a Sean who had a cut on his throat, he realized that things weren't as simple as he thought. Although he felt that Alex was more humane and down-to-earth after becoming Boss Mag, nobody would doubt that he was no longer that cold-blooded dragon slayer. Sean was indeed no good, but if he died here today, the peace meeting 2 days later would be called off, and the war would be reignited. However, it wasn't sure if it would be a war that swept all over the continent or a partial war that only involved a few races. As the host, he had no choice but to be the peacemaker at this time. Sean was obviously relieved when he saw Michael's arrival. Mag flicked a glance at Michael before turning his gaze on Sean, and gravely said, Let them leave Chaos City now. You know who I am talking about. Sean could sense that Mag's longsword had no intention to move away. Alex's gaze under the mask was cold and decisive, as if he could slit his throat open like chopping a block of wood. After a brief moment of silence, Sean said, Tell them to retreat. A knight in a black action suit at the back kept his longsword, took out a bamboo tube, and slapped it towards the sky. A beam of dark red light shot skywards, letting out a sharp whistle before exploding in the sky. A dark red skull appeared in the sky for 3 short seconds before disappearing. They will all leave Chaos City within 15 minutes, Sean said to Mag. Don't try to test my bottom line, and don't try to antagonize me. Otherwise, you will regret coming to this world, Mag said coldly. I'm rather curious now about whether they have found the real target. Sean looked into Mag's eyes. Rib. Mag kept his sword, and an arm flew through the air, with fresh blood splashing across. The arm flew into the air. Ozzy spat out a lightning ball, and burned that arm into black ashes. Ah! Sean let out a scream. He fell backwards with a ghastly pale face. Your Highness! The people from the Roth Empire rushed to him in a panic. That water magic caster quickly used healing magic to stop Sean's bleeding. He looked at that arm which only had a small part of the burned bone remaining with rapidly twitching eyes. Now, even the best magic caster couldn't attach the detached limb back again. I have said, don't try to test my bottom line. This arm is taken on the behalf of those children. As for your life, you will keep it first. I hope you will have more than these 6 useless idiots by your side when I see you again, Mag said coldly before he kept his sword, and turned around. The purple-striped griffin dashed down. Mag leaped gently up onto the griffin's back. They then took off into the air, and disappeared on the horizon. 2 princes, 2 princes. So weird, so weird. One doesn't have an ear, while the other doesn't have an arm. So weird, Louis sang a tune, and returned to his room. The other representatives also went back to sleep with all kinds of expressions. This rather baffling battle gave them 2 deep understandings: the Roth Empire was indeed wealthy, and Alex was indeed powerful. Mag patted Ozzy and ordered in a cold voice, "Ozzy, go out of the city, and then circle around it." Making Andrei sign the peace accord and maintain another 100 years of peace for the Norland continent was the most important issue now. Slicing away Josh's ear was still within Andrei's tolerance. He could even still pretend nothing had happened and send Mag an invitation. However, if Sean, who was representing the Roth Empire for the peace negotiation, died in Chaos City, then Andrei would have a good cause to start the war. The 1 million knights of the Roth Empire would ride southwards, and their first target would be Chaos City. Mag couldn't let the millions of innocent Chaos City's civilians get ravaged by war because of him. Even if he wanted to kill Sean, he had to do it beyond Chaos City, removing Chaos City from the incident completely. As for that arm, it was just a little interest that Mag collected in advance. He wanted Sean and everyone to know that was a price to pay for people who tried to antagonize him, even if he was the first prince of the Roth Empire. "Leader, that is the retreat signal. Let's go, get out of the city now." "But that child could be in there, obey the orders." "Yes." In Chaos City, the dark figures saw the dark red skull that exploded above the city lord's castle. They gave up on their target, and began to evacuate out of the city. To the members of Black Eagle team, who were well versed in stalking, even though the Chaos City's walls were high, it wasn't difficult for them to leave by scaling over the walls as long as they grasped the Grey Temple's patrol team's patterns. On the city wall, the Grey Temple's patrol team had just left when a flying claw hooked onto the wall, and 5 men in black scaled up the dozens of meters high city by grabbing the ropes. Then, they hooked the claws onto the other side of the wall and scaled down. Crack! With a crash of thunder, a silver flash of lightning crashed down under all the black-robed figures' terrified gaze. The ropes instantly broke, and before they could even scream, they were turned into burnt crisps by the lightning. They fell and landed in pieces. Why was there thunder out of nowhere? A member of the Grey Temple's patrol team looked around in befuddlement. "Did you hear anything weird during the thunder just now?" someone asked softly. "No. Wasn't that thunder simply a little loud?" The patrol team members were in a discussion. They didn't notice a giant figure in the sky had secretly gilded over the city in the cover of the dark night. That night, a series of thunder sounded in Chaos City. The lightning flashed beyond the city, causing everyone to have a restless and unsettled sleep. The city lord's castle, in a room. Sean listened to those roaring thunders, and clenched the fist of his remaining arm. His pale face looked even worse as he said through clenched teeth, "Damned Alex." It could be foreseen that the Black Eagle that he had painstakingly nurtured for years was going to be completely eliminated tonight. That was his great reliance to compete for the throne. Alex eliminating them was equivalent to chopping off another arm of his. How could he not be furious? Mag flicked a glance at the last burnt corpse, on which fire was slowly diminishing, patted Ozzy's back, and said, "Let's go. We should return now." Ozzy flapped its wings, and soared into the clouds before returning to the city. It let Mag down in a deserted part of Aiden Square. It rubbed its head against Mag coyly, and flew back to the textile factory after Mag promised to bring it good food tomorrow. Mag returned to the restaurant. Irina was already in the restaurant. She turned to Mag, who had just entered, and said, "I have already sent the children to the textile factory. There will be people taking care of them." Mag removed his mask, and said, "I didn't kill Sean. I only cut off one of his arms, and killed all those men in black." That's equivalent to cutting off both of his arms. It can be considered as an interest. Irina nodded, and smilingly said, "That's quite good. I was still worried you would kill him too fast and easily, and I wouldn't even get a chance to act. Next time, let's charge to Rodu straight away, and get back at that father and son's trio once and for all." "All right." Mag nodded with a smile too. "Let's rest early." The city lord's castle. Michael's study was still brightly lit. He had just received a few urgent reports on his desk. One of the reports was regarding the raging thunders beyond Chaos City. The Grey Temple's patrol teams found hundreds of charred bodies that were suspected to have been struck by the lightning. Due to the severe burns, they couldn't be identified. There was another report regarding a few brutal murders in the city tonight. Many couples were found dead in their homes, and they all had a common feature: they were all married couples consisting of an elf and a human with a 3 to 4 years old half-elf daughter. The half-elf daughters were all missing from the murder scene. Combined with Alex's earlier sudden raging appearance at the city lord's castle, and the fact that he almost killed Sean, Michael already had a rough judgment. "Bastard!" Michael shattered the desk with a slap. He was so furious that he was trembling. He grabbed the long sword hanging on the wall, and prepared to go out. "My lord, what are you doing?" Dicus quickly asked. "Killing Sean, that bastard," Michael said gravely. "Calm down, my lord. What's going on? You were just asking Alex to be magnanimous." Dicus quickly stopped him. He was afraid Michael might do something foolish in the heat of the moment. "If I'd known earlier that Sean had been sending people to murder the common people in Chaos City without any regards, I wouldn't have stopped Alex. I would have even stabbed him and given him 2 holes with my sword," Michael said furiously. "Are you saying that Sean instigated the murders tonight?" Dicus was shocked to hear that. He soon sorted out what happened, and he looked equally furious. However, he still tried to calm Michael down. "My lord, Lord Alex has already cut off Sean's arm, and killed those murderers to avenge those innocent residents who died. If you go to kill Sean now, the Roth Empire will definitely send its troops southwards. You have to look at the big picture on the eve of the peace meeting now." Michael looked at Dicus silently for a while before tossing his long sword to the floor, and gravely said, "Let the Grey Temple investigate this matter. We have to find absolute evidence to prove that Sean has instigated this matter. We're not going to let him leave Chaos City easily after he has recklessly killed Chaos City's residents at will. There will be no difference even if he is a prince of the Roth Empire." "Yes," Dicus replied solemnly, and strode away. Michael looked towards the guests' accommodation, and coldly said, "How dare you, Sean? If Andrei didn't teach you how to be a human, I, Michael, will teach you that." Although he had been striving hard from the moment he'd come to this world, and became a demigod who towered over all other powerhouses from a person who couldn't even lift a thing, he still felt helpless in front of those real giants. He wanted to give Amy and Annie a peaceful future to grow up in, without being forced to drift around in times of war. He believed he could bring some different changes to this world if he was given another 100 years. The rise of Chaos City had proven that the merging and peaceful coexistence of all the races wasn't impossible. As long as all the parties had the will to accomplish it, perhaps the Norland continent would achieve a real unification, and eliminate the possibilities of restarting the racial war. And now, pushing for the signing of the peace accord and the continuation of another 100 years of peace was the most important matter. Mag turned around to get back to the desk. He took a pen and paper to write down a few names, and began to sort out the current situation with a frown. The Roth Empire was the biggest catfish in the pond, which was the Norland continent, now. Apart from the giant dragons and the demon islands at the boundless sea realm, none of the other races could rival the Roth Empire in battle. Wherever the Roth Empire chose to conquer, it would only be a one-sided war. The elves' power was greatly diminished after the Night Elves' rebellion. They were having a headache over the increasing internal fissures. They already had a problem to protect themselves, so they could forget about taking the initiative to start the racial war. However, the elves had been very close with the Roth Empire in the past few years. If Andrei promised to give Helena some benefits, one couldn't rule out the possibility of her following his lead. The Orcs had been enemies with the Roth Empire for generations. They were powerful as a whole, but they were split into two factions now. The faction with the Og tribe in the lead, who preferred war, and the faction with the Fok tribe in the lead, who preferred peace, were almost equally powerful in all aspects. After Oster lost an arm, their power to invade others was limited. Initially, the demons' power had been just below the giant dragons. However, after Mag and Irina stirred things up, their internal division was even worse than the Orcs. The war between the Abyss demons and the Flaming demons was still going on. Their tribes couldn't work together, so they didn't have the capability to fight with others. The forest trolls had always kept a low profile. Their racial benefits were only under the giant dragons. They were generally strong as individuals, but there were not many of them. Although there were rumors about them working with the Roth Empire, given their introverted character, it was still unknown if they would really collaborate with the Roth Empire. The goblins had been growing sneakily in the underground caverns. Their power didn't grow much in the past 100 years, and they still ranked at the bottom. They already collaborated with Chaos City, and also supported the continuation of the peace treaty. The underground caverns that had been developed for years were difficult to attack but easy to defend. They had already formed an underground world with a complete system. They had good self-preservation ability even if the racial war started. The dwarves depended on the exportation of their skills, and had a huge market share in weapons and construction. They had made huge earnings in the past 100 years, so they were naturally supporting peace. They could be considered as standing on the same side with the goblins and Chaos City. As for the giant dragons, who were the most powerful as a whole, although the many dragon tribes with Lewis and Douglas in the lead had declared that they would continue to sign the peace treaty along with Chaos City, the internal structure of the giant dragons wasn't a solid whole. There were still a few families within the giant dragons who had remained silent. Nobody knew their attitude. The giant dragons occupied Dragon Island and the most fertile lands on the Norland continent. Would they really stand on the same side as Chaos City and go against the Roth Empire once the racial war restarted? It was a problem they needed to consider. If the Great Old Ones hadn't suddenly appeared, perhaps the giant dragons on Dragon Island wouldn't have cared who would be leading the world under Dragon Island. Nations have no permanent friends or allies, they only have permanent interests. This sentence was applicable to all the races on the Norland continent too. Mag calculated again carefully. Besides himself, he only had Lantist. The connection that he barely maintained through Babla was, in fact, not stable. After all, Babla didn't know about his other identity, and would never get the Moon Nation involved in the Norland continent's fight for interests. Lantist and Mag's relationship was relatively more stable because he helped them break the curse. This could ensure that Lantist would take his side at the critical time. As for Irina's night elves, those elves had belonged to the bottom echelons of the Wind Forest. They were more suitable to act as a workforce. Including them as combat power was actually a shameful thing. So far, the pro-war Roth Empire was aggressive, and the peace alliance seemed quite strong, but whether they could work together still needed to be tested. The greatest unforeseen event would be the forest trolls and the demons' emergence. No matter which one of them decided to side with the Roth Empire, the situation would have a very bad change. The forest trolls' current chief commander is Bruno. Perhaps I should go meet him before the peace meeting begins. Mag drew a circle over the forest trolls, and his gaze gradually turned clearer. The Roth Empire was powerful, so why couldn't the weaker factions like the dwarves and goblins and Chaos City form an alliance? Chaos City, the goblins and dwarves had basically formed an alliance now, and Mag could bring Lantist into the alliance. Together with the pro-peace Orc tribes alliance with the Fog tribe in the lead and power of the giant dragons with the golden dragons and frost dragons in the lead, as long as they could come to establish a formal contract before the peace meeting, it could become a heavy bargaining chip to negotiate with the Roth Empire. Seems like the City Lord's castle has strategists too, but their implementation wasn't complete. A loose alliance can be easily broken apart by interests. We have to make all the races make their decisions and sign a more restrictive treaty. Mag took out a pen and paper, and began to write invitations. That night, Mag went to the City Lord's castle quietly. He and Michael talked for over an hour before they reached a consensus. They decided to set up a formal peace alliance before the peace meeting. The contract that you three parties signed was a little too small-minded. Mag put down the document in his hands, and took out a new document. This is the treaty that I have drafted. We should use the matter of the devil as a focus, and deem it as the crisis of the entire Norland continent. We will use it to urge all the races to put aside their differences and deal with the devil together, and not let our potential diminish in the racial war, and let the devil take advantage. Michael read through it seriously, and his eyes slowly lit up. In the end, he couldn't help but praise, "Marvelous." He took the documents, and said to Mag, "I will let my people come up with the formal contract immediately with yours as the template." "All right, but we have to do this as soon as possible. We don't have much time left." Mag nodded. "All right. Lewis and Douglas are both here, and all the various representatives have certain power of discourse. I will gather them together tomorrow first and discuss this matter." Michael nodded. He knew the importance of this contract. Once the contract was signed, Andrei would be the one to have a headache. During breakfast, Mag said to Irina, "I went to look for Michael last night." Irina took a sip of the soybean milk, and said lightly, "I thought you went out to meet some little maidens behind my back. How could that happen?" "I don't dare to." Mag cocked an eyebrow. It seemed that she knew about him going out. "I'm still aware of that." Irina nodded. Irina looked at Mag, and continued, "Say it. Why did you go for a rendezvous with Michael late at night?" "What rendezvous?" "That was a business meeting," Mag corrected. "Hey! It's regarding getting all the races to form a peace alliance. I drafted a contract for him to give Chaos City, goblins, dwarves, giant dragons, and the peaceful orcs with the Fog tribe in the lead to sign. They will form an alliance that binds them together," Mag carried on. "Furthermore, I am going to talk to Bruno of the Forest Trolls later to understand what the Forest Trolls are thinking. This is much more reliable than a verbal promise, and will prevent them from going back on their word when the time comes." Irina nodded before saying, "However, although Bruno looks honest, he is more conniving and sinister than anyone. I'm afraid you can't get anything out of him. 3 years ago, I once had a dual date with Bruno, but it was delayed because of that incident. I feel it's just right to restart it now. I think he will say certain things clearer in a battle." There was a hint of coldness in Mag's smile. The forest trolls had reached out on that rainy night years ago and the ambush that Rodu targeted you some time back. "That's great." Irina looked at Mag with praise. "Should I go along with you? One of us needs to take part in the peace negotiation, so you need to stay behind." Mag shook his head lightly. Because he needed to travel today, the restaurant would have to close. Mag prepared breakfast for Mia and the ladies before putting up the notice. He only left through the back door after waiting for them to arrive. Mag brought Ozzy a goat that he roasted early in the morning. They only set off after Ozzy finished its meal. The Forest Trolls' territory was located in the southwest of the Norland continent. The dense ancient forest was the place where they were born and the place where they loved to reside. Ozzy flew for about an hour before a vast forest appeared in Mag's vision. Trees that were over 100 meters tall could be seen everywhere, and ancient trees that were over hundreds of meters in height were standing among the countless trees like giants. The humid climate caused the ancient trees to be covered by moss and all kinds of climbing vines. They looked really old. Insects and birds were chirping incessantly, and one could see all kinds of magic beasts walking in the forest every now and then. The magic beasts looked larger than those found anywhere else. It seemed like even the animals here were made to fit the forest. The forest trolls roamed everywhere, and even their leader Bruno didn't have a designated residence. Mag had to try his luck in the vast forest if he wanted to look for him, or roar. A tragic animal call sounded from afar, and startled a flock of flying birds. There he is! Mag's eyes lit up. Ozzy got it, and flew towards the animal call. Soon, a patch of fallen trees appeared in their vision. In the center of the mess, a forest troll 30-odd meters tall was kneeling on the neck of a chimpanzee, and pulling its arm off to put into his mouth. That chimpanzee was also 10-odd meters tall, but it looked just like a little monkey in front of that forest troll. It couldn't fight back at all, and could only struggle helplessly and watch itself get eaten. Mag watched this scene from the air without any pity. That magic beast called King Kong ape wasn't any kind animal. It was an extremely aggressive magic beast. If it had been a normal human being who'd met it today, the one that would have been played with and eaten would have been that human. However, Mag also wasn't so free to watch a forest troll eat his meal here. He got Ozzy to lower its altitude, and release its awe-inspiring 10th tier magic beast's aura. That forest troll sensed the terrifying aura from above, and looked up in fear. That King Kong ape also stopped screaming, and huddled on the ground in shivers. The absolute bloodline suppression from a 10th tier magic beast made it unable to move. Mag looked down at that forest troll from above, and coldly asked, "I am Alex. Where is Bruno?" Alex. The fear in the forest troll's eyes intensified. As a 6th tier forest troll, he naturally knew Alex's name. He wasn't sure why Alex appeared here, or why he was looking for their chief, but he was sure that he would be killed on the spot if he refused to talk soon. Alex didn't even need to react. Just his famous purple-striped griffin alone could kill him easily. The forest troll got up, pointed to the northeast, and said, "The chief is in the center of the forest. I don't know his exact location. Let's go, Ozzy." Mag didn't expect a forest troll who lived at the edge of the forest could help him find Bruno. He patted Ozzy, and flew in the direction that the forest troll pointed out. The forest got denser and denser, and trees hundreds of meters tall could be seen everywhere. Under the dense coverage was the eerie forest. Beast roars could be heard every now and then. This was the forest troll's territory and also the magic beast's paradise. 10th tier magic beasts were said to appear every now and then, and they were the forest troll's greatest natural enemies. Mag sensed the aura of a few rather powerful magic beasts that were about the 8th tier and 9th tier. Magic beasts of such level weren't easy to meet elsewhere. Moreover, the forest troll's power increased as they got closer to the center. 10th tier. Mag looked at the dense forest below, and suddenly made Ozzy stop. He also stopped concealing his aura at the same time. 3 short breaths later, a 100-meter tall forest troll pushed apart the trees and burst out, glaring at Mag with a pair of dark green eyes. "Alex!" That forest troll let out a shocked roar. "Where's Bruno?" Mag asked severely. After a moment of panic, that forest troll quickly calmed down, and looked at Mag warily. "Alex, this is our forest troll's territory. What are you doing here? Why are you looking for our chief? Bruno and I agreed to have a duel 3 years ago. I am 3 years late, so I came to settle it today," Mag said loudly, his voice reverberating throughout the forest. Chapter 1935 Draw Your Weapon. The troll and beasts below were all shaking in fear silently as they were suppressed by the aura of that terrifying existence midair. The recent legends of Alex had already spread throughout the continent. The troll below had also heard the rumors of Alex using lightning to battle with the devil and using the flying sword to kill Weston. Seeing his impressive aura now, he didn't dare to belittle him. However, Bruno had never told them what to do if Alex came looking for him, so he had no idea how to handle Alex right now. This was the territory of the forest trolls, after all. He would look weak if he didn't reply, but he didn't know if Bruno had the ability to battle Alex if he accepted the challenge. Seeing that their surroundings were quiet, Mag smirked, and said, "Bruno, are you going to be a scaredy cat in your backyard?" "Alex, don't talk nonsense." Right then, an angry roar came from the forest afar. The trees were pushed to the sides, and a super troll nearly 200 meters tall stomped over. The ground shook violently, and the beasts rushed to the sides in a panic. That was a dark green troll who wore thick leather armor that looked just like old tree bark. He was also holding a black club that was about 200 meters long. The club was thick at one end and narrow at the other. Its surface was rough and covered with dark red blood stains. It could be considered as an excellent murder weapon. Mag looked at the forest troll, who was rushing towards him, and narrowed his eyes. This was the top powerhouse among the trolls, Bruno, who was also their leader. Although they were both 10th tier trolls, his presence was much more powerful than the 10th tier troll below. He was already close to the level of Lewis and Douglas, who were among the most powerful beings on the Norland continent. The forest trolls were huge, so they had the natural gift, a big body size like the giant dragons. Their strength was awesome. Bruno stopped about 500 meters away. His black eyes were staring at Mag, who was standing on the griffin's back. He said in a low voice, "Alex, what do you want?" "I came to fulfill the date we set 3 years ago." Mag looked at Bruno, and calmly said, "Today, let's have a duel to the death." Bruno frowned, and his gaze flickered. Obviously, he didn't expect Mag to make such a request. The other 10th tier troll at the side went white too. Given Alex's power now, if he wanted to duel to death with Bruno, Bruno's chance of winning would be low. The peace negotiation is going to happen soon. I don't want to engage in useless conflict with you now. Go back, Bruno said gravely, looking at Mag warily at the same time. Since I have come today, I am not going to return empty-handed. I have nothing to do with the peace meeting. What I want is justice for that rainy night 3 years ago and that ambush in Rodu some time ago. Mag grasped the Tiandu sword, and pulled it out gradually. "Draw your weapon." Bruno furrowed his brows even tighter, and shouted, "This is the territory of the forest troll, go, Ozzy!" Mag's shout interrupted Bruno's call. "Ow!" Ozzy let out a long howl, and spread its wings. It turned into a purple lightning, and dashed towards Bruno, who was a few hundred meters away. "Bastard!" Bruno cursed inwardly. The youngsters now had no regard for rules when it came to dueling. People used to talk for 30 minutes before they started the duel. Nobody would start fighting as soon as they arrived. However, the purple-striped griffin was extremely fast. If he didn't move, the griffin would appear in front of him instantly. Even he wouldn't dare to let Alex get close to him. Last night, he had just received information about Alex barging into the city lord's castle, destroying the combined attack of Sean's 6 10th tier powerhouses, and cutting off one of Sean's arms. 6 10th tier powerhouses couldn't stop Alex, so nobody knew how powerful Alex was now. However, everyone was sure of one thing. He had become the first existence to really break through the barrier of the 10th tier in history. Therefore, when Alex came looking for Bruno, the latter's first thought was to hide quietly. As long as Alex's words were not too nasty, he wouldn't want to face him at this time. Alex had already attacked, so a battle was inevitable. "Get our men!" Bruno roared furiously at the dazed 10th tier troll at the side. At the same time, he raised that black stone club, and smashed it at the purple-striped griffin that was flying towards him. Ozzy's wingspan was over 100 meters, so it didn't appear small when it was facing a 200 meters tall forest troll. The black stone club smashed at them, casting a giant shadow. The purple-striped griffin turned agilely, and scraped by the stone club. Boom! The stone club landed on the ground. The ground trembled, and a patch of trees fell. Mag swept a glance at the mess behind him. The power of this strike was no less than any magic spell cast by a 10th tier magic caster. If any normal 10th tier knight was to face it, he would be smashed flat by it. After missing that strike, Bruno displayed an agility that didn't match his size at all. He retracted his stone club, pointed it upwards, and smashed it at Ozzy again. At the same time, he shook his shoulder, and countless thick vines shot out from his shoulders like arrows towards Ozzy. Leave the rest to me. Ozzy had already flown above Bruno. Mag lightly patted Ozzy with a smile before leaping down with his sword towards the stone club that pushed upwards. Mag grasped his sword with both his hands over his head, and yelled, "Slash!" Crack! A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Lightning flashed over the Tiandu sword as if heavenly punishments were going to descend. "You're asking for death." Bruno looked at Mag, who had leaped off the griffin's back and headed towards the stone club, with a hint of cruelty in his eyes. If he could let Alex stay here forever, he could get rid of a giant threat once and for all. "Seance club, explode!" Bruno let out an angry roar. The ordinary-looking black stone club suddenly produced beams of dark red light. Those dark red bloodstains that were left on the stone club became scary images of skeletons, making the stone club look even more eerie. The stone club smashed towards Mag, dragging the red light behind it. This seance club was a hereditary treasure of the forest trolls. Apparently, the ancestor of the forest trolls made it from a natural asteroid, and it was indestructible. Countless powerhouses had died under this stone club through the years, and its users had never bothered to wash it. Instead, they would deliberately rub the blood of their opponents all over the club, giving the latter a mysterious presence. The Seance Club was in the top 5 of the Norland continent's weapon ranking. It was a true legendary weapon. Mag looked just like an ant with a sewing needle in front of the 200 meters long club, but he went head-on towards it without any reservations. Ozzy swerved to get rid of those vines. It soared to a high altitude, and then looked down concernedly too. The giant stone club 200 meters long was like a mountain that was flying towards Mag. Mag felt that increasingly acutely as the stone club got closer to him. Meanwhile, those blinking red skeletons should be the souls of those who died under the stone club. They could give their opponents some pressure and uncomfortable sensations. However, that was it. There wasn't any hesitation or fear in Mag's eyes. He grasped his sword, and slashed at that stone club. The scene seemed to freeze in time. The giant club that was moving upwards seemed to stop. Mag's long sword also halted. Just like a needle pushing against a giant slab of stone, this scene looked very weird and spooky. However, this silence was only maintained for a brief 3 seconds. Crack! Together with a crisp sound, a crack appeared at the place where the long sword touched the giant club. Then, the crack spread rapidly like spider webs, and soon covered the entire Seance Club. This. Bruno stared at the cracks that extended towards him with increasingly wide eyes. Bam! A loud crack, and the 200 meters long Seance Club shattered completely. It became countless big and small rocks as it fell to the ground. Those dark red skeletons also disappeared along with it. No! Bruno stared at the shattered rocks in his hand, and let out an angry roar. The Seance Club was shattered. All the forest trolls looked on with terrified expressions too. This was the forest troll's hereditary treasure and Bruno's weapon. It was shattered by Alex with just one strike. This strike had shattered the Seance Club and the confidence of all the forest trolls. They stared at Alex, this seemingly tiny man who looked as glaring as a god right now. He was fearsome. After shattering the Seance Club with one strike, Mag's figure fell towards Bruno again. The lightning that surrounded the long sword became brighter, making him resemble the god of thunder. Bruno took a few steps back, and stabilized himself. He looked at Alex, who was coming towards him with his sword again, with fear in his eyes. He angrily called to his people who were still in a daze. "Let's kill him together." At the same time, he smashed his chest hard, and the leather armor that looked like old tree bark trembled. The mud, moss, and sand on its surface were removed, revealing the metal gleam underneath. Bruno grabbed an ancient tree next to him with both his arms, and lifted it up. The ancient tree, hundreds of meters tall, was pulled out together with its roots. Then, he swung it towards Mag. All the forest trolls regained their wits, and ran towards Bruno, swinging their weapons. Bruno wasn't Alex's match, so they naturally couldn't watch him die in Alex's hands. The gigantic ancient tree swung towards Alex with mighty force. This was the toughest ironwood that had grown over thousands of years. It was even tougher than actual steel. Mag descended from the sky with the long sword in front of him, and rammed into that ancient tree head-on. The ironwood that was even tougher than steel was sliced open in the center by the Tiandu sword like tofu and then shattered into wood chips by the sword projection. "Oh no!" Bruno looked at Mag, who was getting closer to him with an unstoppable speed, and went white. Vines burst out from Bruno's body and the ground, and rose towards Mag. However, they were all cut down by the sword projection once they got close to Mag. They couldn't hinder Mag at all. In a blink of an eye, Mag already came to him. Bruno had nowhere to hide. Fear appeared on his face as he threw away the leftover broken piece of wood in his hands, and swung his fist at Mag. A golden red aura engulfed his fist as if it was on fire. His whole body was engulfed by a faint golden red light. His racial advantage and 10th tier S power were displayed to the maximum right now. Although his weapon was destroyed, his body was his greatest weapon right now. Mag stared at that fist, and a glint flickered in his eyes too. Dang! The long sword collided with that fist, and made a resounding clang. Mag held his sword in an upside-down position. Bruno raised his fist skywards with an increasingly hideous expression. He was trying very hard to maintain that golden red aura that was about to diminish at any time. "You've lost." Mag chuckled as he watched Bruno, who began to struggle. As soon as he finished speaking, the restrained sword projection was let out suddenly. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the aura over the fist was extinguished like candlelight. "Hey!" Bruno's eyes widened instantly as he watched his arm being cut into countless pieces by the sword projection before shattering like the Seance Club earlier. Mag released the sword, and the sword that was gleaming with lightning pierced Bruno's armor, and stabbed into his heart. Then, it went through, and flew back into Mag's hand. Ozzy flew down, and caught Mag in midair. Bruno only felt his life force being taken away at this moment. His other hand that was clenched into a fist went limp as he glared and knelt down slowly. He stared at Mag, who was standing on the griffin's back, with indignation, and hoarsely said, "Why?" Mag stood with his sword in hand, and calmly said to Bruno, 3 years ago, I almost died in you trolls' hands. 3 months ago, Irina also almost died in your trolls' hands. From the moment you had that thought, you should have known that this day was going to come sooner or later." Bruno gave Mag a deadly stare before falling to the ground gradually without making any sound. "Bruno is dead. The chief is dead." The forest trolls who were dashing forward faltered in their steps as they stared at Bruno, who was already dead on the ground. They went white, and a commotion broke out. Furthermore, they were looking at Alex with a gaze full of fear apart from hatred. A troll as powerful as Bruno was actually defenseless in front of him. "The feud I have with the forest trolls is considered settled today." Mag kept his sword. He looked at the 6 10th tier forest trolls who had gathered around him, and said in a calm yet powerful voice, "However, no matter which one of you becomes the new leader of the forest trolls, I hope you can sign your name on the peace accord. I love peace." "You are threatening us, the trolls," a 10th tier said furiously. Yes. This isn't a negotiation. This is a threat. Mag nodded honestly. His threat became even more powerful after killing Bruno. The forest trolls weren't comparable to the Roth Empire. If he couldn't subdue them, he would be wasting his demigod-level power. All the trolls were feeling furious and indignant, but they didn't dare to do anything to antagonize Mag when they saw the dead Bruno. Let's go, Ozzy. Mag cast a final glance at the trolls, and left on Ozzy's back. Chapter 1937 Alex. The several 10th tier trolls got together to discuss the future of the forest trolls in a grave atmosphere. The forest trolls were a powerful race, or at least it had been so 100 years ago. With their lifespan that was over 1,000 years, 100 years weren't a long time. Hence, they still felt that the forest trolls were very powerful. However, all this was shattered by Mag's sword. One human, one tiny human. That sword shattered the Seance Club that had been passed on for generations, killed the #1 powerhouse of the trolls, Bruno, and shattered their pride. If we don't avenge ourselves, won't the trolls become the joke of the Norland continent? A troll said furiously. How are we going to avenge ourselves? Bruno is already dead, and the Seance Club was shattered. Who among us is Alex's match? Even when we combined forces, we failed to kill him 3 years ago. We can forget about it now, a troll answered miserably. All the trolls became dejected upon hearing that. They had already witnessed Alex's power earlier. That was a power that crushed the 10th tier. They couldn't think of going against him. Then, what do we do now? According to him, we should sign the peace accord during the peace meeting, otherwise he would continue to seek trouble with us. Bruno was close to the Roth Empire previously. Now he's dead, and the Roth Empire is at odds with Alex. It's just neither of them could defeat the other, so we became the punching bag. Andre is safely tucked away in the Rodeu's palace, but if we don't do as Alex said, guess who will be the next one to die? Mag circled around the forest once before flying back to Chaos City. His objective for this trip was already achieved after killing Bruno. The horn of vengeance was sounded. Since he had already recovered his power and even advanced, there was no reason to let his enemies continue to enjoy themselves. Bruno and Josh were rather closely related. He was one of the organizers of that rainy night's ambush and the assassination of Irina in Rodeu a few months ago. He was also the person behind the enmity between the Roth Empire and the Elves. The forest trolls were more pro-war under Bruno's leadership. Now that he was dead and Mag's warning was added, he guessed these big guys would make a wise choice. The news of Alex killing Bruno in a duel had spread throughout the Norland continent as if wings were attached to it, and it reached the decision-makers. Alex. The forest trolls representative who went to peace negotiation let out a furious roar, and reduced the letter in his hands to shreds. The other representatives had also received the news, and all had different expressions. No one had expected Alex to travel and kill Bruno today after chopping off Sean's arm last night. Sean, who had lost an arm, looked solemn too. The forest trolls were the Roth Empire's allies, and Bruno had already promised to follow the Roth Empire's lead in the peace meeting. They would also join forces with the Roth Empire after the war started and swept through the Norland continent. However, Bruno died in Alex's hands just before the peace meeting was going to start. The forest troll representative was angry yet restrained. Obviously, the information that he had received contained the troll's decision. Alex cut off my arm last night, and killed the forest troll's leader Bruno for no reason today. How is his behavior different from the devil's? Sean got up, and gravely said to all the representatives present, we shouldn't be discussing how to annihilate the devil here today. Instead, we should think about how to restrain Alex, who has already escaped control, to protect our own safety. Sean is right. Alex has become weird and bloodthirsty after he reappeared. More than 10 10th tier powerhouses from various races alone have died at his hands. All the races should combine forces to kill such a violent and bloodthirsty person, the Elves representative, Elliot, commented with a grave expression. We, the fear demons, also think that we should sanction Alex. The way he does things is completely different from the past. I'm afraid he is already being controlled by the devil. We should eliminate him as soon as possible, the fear demon representative spoke up. The atmosphere became very weird. Many turned to look at Irina at the side. Irina sneered mockingly, and was about to speak. Sean, you know very well why you lost your arm. Alex's behavior was already very restrained. If anyone dares to harm my daughter, I will definitely take his life, and not just merely an arm. Michael looked at Sean with a cold gaze. Of course, it's not fine to harm my Chaos City's residents, either. Sean felt as if he was being watched by a beast, and instinctively avoided his gaze. As for Bruno's death, the report that I received said they were having a duel that they agreed upon 3 years ago. It was a duel to the death. Michael's gaze landed on the forest troll's representative. As for their private feud, you guys know better if it could be brought up to be discussed here. The forest troll representative clenched his fists, and avoided Michael's gaze. He knew the reason for this duel and what role did the forest trolls play in that assassination. There was a reason why Alex wanted to kill Bruno. What the elves have is an internal conflict, we shouldn't interfere. However, everyone should kill a murderer. This rationale has never changed. Michael smirked at Elliot. Let me tell you honestly now why our Chaos City accepted the Night Elves. It's because I think you guys are unethical. Elliot's face flashed green and red as he didn't know how to refute him at that moment. As for the fear demons, that incident happened in front of all the representatives. I'm sure everyone present knows what happened. How was he vicious? Michael looked at the fear demon representative with a grave expression, and said, Alex attracted the lightning to help seal that devil with no regard for his own life. He prevented a catastrophe for the Norland continent. Why did he become so unbearable in your description? That fear demon was at a loss for words. He lowered his head in displeasure. Irina looked at Michael with appreciation. She didn't expect that he could make these people lost for words. It saved her the trouble of arguing with them. Michael got up, and said to all the representatives, let's stop here today. I have already sent the invitation to the Moon Nation through their princess. We can only wait for their reply now. Your Highness, why don't we escort you back to Rhoda first? It is so chaotic here in Chaos City, and you are injured. It's also a better idea for you to go back to recuperate for a while, said a 10th tier knight to Sean worriedly. Yes, Your Highness, I'm afraid Michael would try to harm you. If you don't leave now, something might happen, another knight agreed. If I left now, it would be desertion. Sean shook his head. Even when Alex chopped off his arm yesterday, he had never thought of leaving Chaos City. Losing his arm was no big deal. If he lost his position in Andre's heart, he would really be left with nothing. Sean looked at the two generals who were his confidants, and said in a lowered voice, but I'm afraid Michael already knew that a few of the ordinary elves and humans had died. Based on his usual style, he would not let me leave easily. Plan out a few routes to leave Chaos City in case we really need them. Yes. The two knights' expressions turned solemn as they nodded quickly. Sean had already calmed down. He sat right back at his table, and fell silent with a frown for a while before saying, Royal Father will begin his journey over to Chaos City tomorrow, and Josh will be staying alone in Rodu. I am afraid that something might happen. You mean Josh will plan a revolt? One of the knights exclaimed. Although Josh's backing is the Magus Tower, he does not have deep connections within the military. It would not be easy for him to control Rodu, much less the Roth Empire for now. I doubt he would make such a foolish decision, the other knight commented. Don't underestimate what he did over the last few years, and do not overestimate his patience. With Alex's death threat and Bruno's death, it is unlike him not to do anything actively. Sean laughed coldly with a shake of his head. Whether my conjecture is right or wrong, we still have to do some preparations. Spread my command, get the northwestern allied forces to, get someone to keep watch on Sean. From today onwards, ban him from leaving Chaos City, Michael told Dicus. All right. Dicus nodded. After that, he said, the various representatives attending the peace talks will begin their journey over tomorrow. Andrei will be personally representing the Roth Empire. How do you intend to settle this matter? When Sean commanded to have the innocent citizens of Chaos City killed, he would have to be responsible for it. Even if he's the first prince of the Roth Empire, there will be no exception, Michael said with resolution. His father will be coming over tomorrow. In that case, I will tell him about this. Yes. Dicus nodded. Double up on the arrangements for the peace alliance matters. We must form a strong peace alliance tonight so that we can have more say at the peace talks, Michael instructed Dicus. Miss Connie is already on her way. The Goblin Chief and Dwarf King will also be reaching Chaos City tonight. Lewis and Douglas, as well as the other chiefs of the large dragon tribes, had already arrived in Chaos City. Right now, we only haven't set a time to meet Alex and the mysterious Lantistines, Douglas replied quickly. To find Alex, just go to the textile factory in the northern part of the city to look for Irina. She knows where Alex is. Only Alex can contact the Lantistines. Michael stood up. I'll make a trip out. Sure. I'll get someone to prepare your carriage. I'll leave from the back door. Prepare an ordinary-looking horse-drawn carriage. In no time at all, an unassuming black horse-drawn carriage drove out from the city lord's castle and to Aiden Square. The horse-drawn carriage stopped by the magic potion shop. Michael got off the carriage, and entered the shop. Around half an hour later, Michael left the magic potion shop, and travelled to Chaos School. I didn't expect you to kill Bruno. When Mag got back to the restaurant, Irina was already sitting inside. The moment he entered, she looked at him with a smile, and said, "This did not seem like something you would do after you became more prudent. Actually, this is the prudent choice. A strong race in a dangerous position is more of a headache than a strong race that has swayed because of worries." Killing Bruno would not only make the forest trolls dispel all thoughts of following the Roth Empire, but it could also strengthen the determination of other races in joining the alliance. It is a worthy investment, Mag said with a smile as he poured himself a glass of water. The effect is there. Irina looked at Mag with admiration, and said, "Tonight, Michael will be holding the Peace Alliance Treaty signing ceremony in the City Lord's Castle. He told me to inform you and Lantis to attend. Dexter has arrived in Chaos City. I can just appear there straight away tonight." Mag nodded. "I am a little worried about Connie. Although Oster had lost an arm, he definitely would not take things lying down. Why don't you pick her up?" Irina told Mag. "All right. I think they should have set off by now. I'll head over." Mag nodded. He finished the water in his glass, and left again. Just as Irina had said, Oster was a firm war fanatic. Initially, after planning the internal conflict within the Fok tribe, he wanted to take control of the Fok tribe directly, and thus completely control the entire Orc race. However, Connie had foiled his plans. Now, Connie was preparing to represent the Fok tribe, and stand by the Orcs who supported peace by joining the Peace Alliance. Oster would definitely not let it be. Rex was only a single person. There was no way he could trust the people of the Fok tribe yet, so Mag thought that he should pick Connie up. "Are you sure that they will pass by here this time?" Oster, who had lost an arm, stood at the edge of a mountain as he looked out in the direction of the Fok tribe. "Don't worry, sir, this time, the one flying the steed is our man. If he doesn't bring them over, I'll kill his entire family. We just have to wait here. There's no going wrong this time," an orc at the side guaranteed with a pat on his chest. "That'd better be the case. Otherwise, I'll kill your entire family," Oster said as he looked askance at the orc. The orc's expression froze immediately. He let out an unnatural smile, and looked out into the direction of the Fok tribe, praying inside that the fellow would prove reliable, and bring that little B*tch Connie over. This time, Oster brought along 5 10th tier orc powerhouses to trap Connie. He came with the intention of killing her so that there would be an official handover in the power of the orcs on the night before the peace talks. Go away. I'll fly this big white bird. I flew to Chaos City before. I am very experienced, and I know the way. On the other side, Connie kicked the beast tamer, and took over the reins confidently. Chapter 1939 If I say I'm here to kill you, will you be afraid? Previously, when Connie went to Rodu on her own, her schedule was leaked. She only managed to avoid the opponent's ambush because the route she took was too strange. That was how she managed to reach Chaos City without harm. This time, for the peace talks at Chaos City, the orcs were divided into 2 parties. Oster wanted to gain the final say for the orc tribes, and an ambush midway was his final chance. Rex had done some setups, but because there was no one he could trust within the Fok tribe, he accompanied Connie for this trip to Chaos City. This orc flying the steed was also casually picked. Since they could not guarantee the other party's loyalty no matter how meticulous they were in their selection, they might as well choose someone randomly and rule him out. From his unusual anxiousness, Rex could tell that this orc was bribed, or should he say threatened, by Oster. Chief, why don't I steer the steed? You can take a good rest behind, the beast tamer said carefully, trying to hide his anxiousness. Do you think you're more capable than me? Connie looked askance at him. No, no. I'm just worried that it would be too tiring for you, Chief. The orc quickly shook his head. It's all right. I find it fun. You can take a rest at the back. Connie pulled on the reins around the white bird, and flew southward. Upon seeing that, the orc quickly said, Hey, 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 you flew in the wrong direction. Chaos City should be on that side. Do you see that tall mountain ahead? You should fly in that direction. Connie blushed slightly. She said with conviction, Who says so? This is right. I have a super good sense of direction. I've flown to Chaos City hundreds of times, and I've always gone this way. Across the mountain would be plains all the way, and it would be closer to Chaos City that way. The beast tamer's forehead was filled with perspiration. Please listen to me, I won't be wrong about it. I'm not listening, I'm not listening. Connie shook her head as she locked her gaze forward. The direction I've set my sight on is definitely right. There will be no mistake at all. But, the beast tamer wanted to continue. What's there on the mountain? Rex suddenly said. Rex's deep voice made the beast tamer's heart skip a beat. Following that, he felt chills down his spine. He turned back rigidly with a smile, and said, There's snow. He felt as though Rex had seen through all his secrets the moment they locked gazes. I'm afraid of the cold, I'm not going over. Connie rejected even more resolutely. She patted the big white bird's back to accelerate it forward toward the south. In no time at all, that tall mountain had become a tiny black dot. It's over, the beast tamer had lost all hope as he sat defeatedly on the bird's back. Are you going to jump down, or do you want me to kick you down? Rex asked the beast tamer coldly. I just want my family to continue living. Why aren't you giving me this chance? The beast tamer howled hysterically at Rex and Connie. Connie looked at the beast tamer with bewilderment. I'm going to kill you. The beast tamer suddenly pulled out a dagger from his sleeve, and dashed toward Connie's back. However, the moment the tip of the knife was out, Rex had already kicked the beast tamer on his back. The beast tamer could only let out a sharp shrill before he flew out. A very, very long time later, there was a low thud of something falling to the ground. Connie finally got back to her senses as she asked Rex, was he also bribed by Oster? What do you think? Rex rolled his eyes. He had no idea how he should praise this precious disciple of his. I think that's the case. Connie nodded seriously. It looks like I have to work on teaching you how to read people after we return from this meeting, Rex said with a sigh, feeling as though he still had a long way to go. Master, actually, even if you hadn't done anything, he wouldn't have been able to stab me, Connie said seriously. I'm confident about that. Well, I'm not confident about that. Rex shook his head. Now, which direction should we fly in? Connie asked as she looked left and right. Didn't you just say that you had a super good sense of direction? I'll lose my sense of direction once I get nervous, Connie's face reddened. She looked left and right again, and pointed in a random direction. Let's go, it's here. Why isn't she here? Oster asked with a frown as he watched a bird fly across the sky slowly half an hour later. She should be arriving soon. The orc who had been very confident previously wiped his cold sweat off his forehead as he panicked inside. The orcs all had different expressions as they looked up at the empty sky. No matter how slowly they flew, Connie should have been here. They could not help but recall the previous ambush, when they also waited there for a very long time. In the end, they did not even see a single feather when Connie arrived at Chaos City. There better be no problem with the person you found. Oster glared at him. His entire family is in my hands. There will definitely be no problem. The orc wiped away his cold sweat and nodded profusely. Another half an hour passed. They still did not see Connie. However, a purple-striped griffin appeared behind them. Alex! All of them could not help but exclaim when they saw that suave man standing on the back of the purple-striped griffin. Mag looked at the mountain range that joined to form one like below him. The orc powerhouses led by Oster frowned. There were 6 10th tier powerhouses alone and more than 10 orcs at the 8th tier and 9th tier. This was obviously most of the pro-war orcs. However, judging from the looks of it, they seemed not to have met Connie yet. That made him heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was puzzled. This place was not far from the Fok tribe, and was a place one would have to pass by on the way to Chaos City. Could it be that Connie had not set off? He did not meet Connie on his way here, either. Alex, what are you doing here at the Orc tribes? Oster raised his voice warily. The 10th tier powerhouses also inched closer to Alex. News of Alex killing Bruno had already reached the Orcs, and Oster had been one of the people behind the assassination of Alex back then. Could he be here for him? After losing an arm, Oster's capabilities had decreased significantly. He had witnessed the match between Alex and the devil, and would not dare to raise a battle with Alex. If I say I'm here to kill you, will you be afraid? Mag looked at Oster with a seeming smile. Alex had chopped off one of Sean's arms, and also killed Bruno. It did make sense if he said that he was here to kill him now. Alex, there is no feud between you and me. We have even fought the devil together. Why would you want to kill me? Even if your capabilities have risen, what difference would you have with the devil if you were to do something like that? Oster said solemnly. He took half a step back so that the others could shield him. Mag looked at Oster's darting gaze and smiled. He really did not intend to kill Oster today. He just happened to meet him. For all these years, Oster was the only one who dared to go up against the Roth Empire. Other than the fact that he was rather dumb, he could be considered ambitious. Back when Alex was the general commanding the Northwestern Allied forces, he was already archenemies with Oster. Ever since Alex started becoming famous, the Orcs had never been able to gain any advantage at the northwestern border, and thus Oster hated Alex to the core. This was also mainly why Oster chose to forego the old grudges, and join hands with Josh to set Alex up during the assassination on that rainy night. The ambush today was obviously targeted at Connie, but instead of Connie, Alex came. Oster didn't know if he should consider it lucky or not. The tension rose, and everyone looked nervously at Mag. Although they had 6 10th tier powerhouses and 10s of 8th tier and 9th tier powerhouses, while Mag was alone, this was exactly why they felt even more pressured. Just yesterday, Mag alone broke through the joint attack of 6 10th tier powerhouses, and chopped off Sean's arm. Strength in numbers was just a joke in the face of absolute capabilities. "I'll spare your life today to give you a chance to join the peace talks," Mag told Oster coldly. Oster swallowed. He swallowed the curses that he wanted to hurl at Alex. Although Alex's words and tone made him feel like his life was spared, he still felt a hint of joy amidst the anger. "This is still the territory of the Orcs," Oster said sternly. "Anywhere with my long sword is my territory," Mag said calmly. "Retreat." Oster turned to leave. He got on his flying steed, and fled with the other Orcs quickly. He had to admit that he lost in terms of faking. Mag watched the group of Orcs disappear on the horizon before he flew towards the Fok tribe on Ozii. It was not that he could not kill Oster. Oster without an arm was comparable to Bruno, and would not even survive a single swing of Mag's sword. As for the 6 Orcs, although they were 10th tier powerhouses, they could not even come close to Sean's 6 10th tier powerhouses who underwent focused combat training. As long as he was fast enough, they would not be much of an obstacle to him. Mag had other plans for Oster's pig brain. Although Oster and the Roth Empire were in favor of the war, both parties had an unresolvable conflict, which meant that if war were to resume, the two parties would have to fight against each other. Based on the saying "the enemy of my enemy is my friend," Oster had a greater value alive than dead. As long as Oster was still alive, the Orc tribes at the northwestern border of the Roth Empire would stand firm against the Roth Empire to prevent its expansion. If Oster were to die, it would be difficult to have a leader like him appear from the Orc tribes again to unite everyone within a short period. Connie would not do it, either, and it would be a terrible scenario for the Orcs. Mag circled above the Fok tribe, and after making sure that he could not detect Rex, he mumbled to himself, "Could Connie be the one behind the reins again this time?" Oster and his gang had left, so the crisis of the assassination was averted. Mag went straight back to Chaos City. "Boss, what a coincidence! We've just reached Chaos City, and arrived at the restaurant for our meal." Connie darted out from the side excitedly just as Mag walked into the restaurant. "Where did you come from?" Mag looked at Connie, and Rex behind her, with a puzzled expression. He did not see them on his way back just now. "Hee, we came from the tribe, of course. On top of that, I was the one who steered the big white bird to Chaos City today. I landed very accurately. Aren't I impressive?" Connie asked proudly. "That is impressive." Mag nodded. If she had had even the slightest bit of sense of direction, she would not have been lost at her own doorstep. Thinking about it that way made Mag pity Oster and the gang. They really had it tough to have met such a weird person, turning their ambush into a chance encounter. "If it were not for the bird that knew the way, we would have probably been enjoying the sea breeze on the Demon Islands right now," Rex said calmly. Connie blushed, and said guiltily, "Master, I was the one who pointed it in the right direction. Come on in. I happened to be out just now, and I haven't eaten." Mag opened the door to let them in. "Boss, what were you out to do? Why did you take the day off?" Connie asked curiously while following him in. "I went out to get some ingredients. I'm thinking of what new product I should launch." Mag thought that since she had already avoided the assassination perfectly, there was no need to tell her about it. He wondered if this was considered a form of superpower for an assassin. After closing the door, Mag looked at Connie and Rex, and asked, "What would you like to have?" "We still have to go to the City Lord's castle for the meeting. Let's have something simpler." Connie smiled innocently, and said, "Why don't we have 100 skewers of mutton kebab and 10 skewers of roasted pig's eyes? Is it a bad time to make?" "Buddha jumps over the wall," Rex mumbled. Mag glanced at Rex's thick hair. Could it be that he wanted one more to ensure that his hair stayed thick? However, speaking of which, this pair of master and disciple was a perfect match. No problem for the skewers, but the Buddha jumps over the wall really can't be made now. Why don't you guys stay for a few more days after the meeting, and come over again for it either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? Mag said with a smile. All right. Rex nodded. We'll come tomorrow. Mag went upstairs to get changed before going to the kitchen to start cooking. Come to think of it, ever since he left in the morning, he had not had the time to even eat lunch, and only had a cup of water in between. Boss, do you know that the peace talks will start tomorrow? Connie asked as she stood by the kitchen door, swallowing her saliva while watching Mag grill the skewers. I've heard. Mag nodded. I am an important person attending the meeting, Connie said with a pat on her chest. Mag glanced at her. This little orc-eared lady who had been just a timid lady already had the aura of a queen. Of course, one would only feel that if Connie were to stay quiet. Moreover, she had already participated in matters that could affect the situation on the continent. Such a change in her was something Mag did not expect. He merely brought this orc-eared lady home on his way. In that case, you'll have to do well. Mag smiled and passed her a handful of mutton kebabs, which were just done. Of course. Connie received the mutton kebabs, and bit into one of them. Immediately, she smiled with satisfaction. Meanwhile, Mag made use of the free time in the afternoon to visit Hannah's brewery to help her with the testing of the brewing machine. He even deployed some of the staff from the textile factory who operated the steam engines. After coal was shoveled into a steam boiler, the steam started pushing a piston, which caused the gears to run. The entire workshop suddenly came alive, and the sound produced was smooth and pleasing to the ears. It's really moving. Mabai was slightly agitated. He looked at the liquid and steam moving within those pipes and the machines that started working in disbelief. Although he made all the parts by hand with Lulu, it was still very exciting to see the parts pieced together form a huge machine that could run smoothly. Lulu was also smiling. They had put in tremendous effort and time for this machine, so he was naturally happy to see it working successfully. It really works. It works. There's no problem at all. No one would be happier than Hannah. She ran a few rounds in the workshop to check, and make sure that every part was working successfully. She was so excited seeing that there were no problems that her face flushed red. Boss! You're awesome! Hannah gave Mag a big hug, followed by Mabai and Lulu. After that, she clenched her fists, and said confidently, "From now on, I will rule the booze business of Chaos City. I want to become the real queen of rum." What's with this foolish confidence? Mag looked at Hannah with a smile. She had finally owned her brewery again in Chaos City, and it was automated and way bigger compared to her previous little workshop. It would no longer be a dream for the citizens of Chaos City to enjoy value for money, better quality, and sufficient supply of rum. On top of that, there would be a complete makeover of the brewing scene in Chaos City. The machines are operating normally. This was made from your old machine. The instruction manual is here. You can study it slowly. Mag passed Hannah a thin manual. From today onwards, he would become a legitimate investor who would not be involved in the works at the brewery. All right. Hannah received the manual, and looked at Mag seriously as she said, "Don't worry, Booze, I'll be able to let the customers of Mamie Restaurant enjoy the new rum that I make very soon. I'll wait for your good news." Mag nodded with a smile. He bade his farewell and left. It was about time he went to the City Lord's castle to attend the Peace Alliance establishment ceremony. Mag returned to the restaurant. Irina was already waiting for him inside. "I took a trip down to Hannah's brewery to help her test out the machines. Connie is here," Mag told Irina. The meeting had already started. "We should be on our way." Irina glanced at the clock on the wall. "Hang on." Mag went upstairs, and came down quickly after changing. He was going over for a meeting tonight, so Mag did not wear his cool and suave cape. Instead, he put on a rather simple but loose-fitting long robe that would not give his figure away. He also wore a belt and a black and white mask. "Let's go." Irina held Mag's arm, and they disappeared within the restaurant with a flash of a faint golden glow beneath their feet. In the City Lord's Castle's meeting room, Michael and Roland were seated in the main seats. Goblin Chief Davis, Dwarf King Job, Great Elder of the Golden Dragon Tribe Lewis, Great Elder of the Frost Dragon Tribe Douglas, and Chief of the Fawk Tribe Connie had taken their respective seats. Everyone sat in silence, occasionally glancing at the door. Now, the only people left were Alex and Irina, as well as the representative of the mysterious Lantist. "Hey, Michael, are you sure you've already informed them?" Lewis asked Michael impatiently. "I suppose they will arrive soon." Michael nodded. Alex was the one who proposed the alliance. It would not make sense for the couple to be missing. Could it be that he was severely injured in that battle where he killed Bruno? "He's here," Douglas suddenly said softly as he looked at the door. Everyone turned to look in the direction of the door. Irina and Alex walked in side by side with matching footsteps, one dressed in white and one dressed in black. Their aura was so powerful that one would subconsciously avoid them. Behind them was a magic caster with a crystal ball floating in his hand. This was the High Priest of Lantist. "We were delayed on our way here," Mag explained briefly. After that, he sat on an empty seat beside Connie. Irina sat beside Mag. Dexter found a seat in the far corner. He nodded at everyone, and did not speak. "How did you kill Bruno?" Lewis asked curiously. Bruno was within the top 10 in the whole of the Norland continent in terms of capabilities. Even Lewis was not certain that he could defeat him. 2 slashes. Mag did not speak much to maintain his aloof persona. Everyone present was shocked. Alex only took 2 slashes to kill Bruno. Indeed, 10th tier powerhouses were nothing in front of Alex. Connie glanced at Mag with admiration. She did not forget to greet Irina at the same time. "Hi, big sister Irina." "Hi, Connie." Irina smiled. Connie wanted to say your husband is incredible, but it did not seem very appropriate, so she kept the comment to herself. However, this Master Alex was really impressive. After disappearing for 3 years, he came back even stronger, and no one could stop him. "All right. Since everyone is here, let's move on to the topic, and discuss the peace alliance." Michael looked at everyone, and announced, "The devil is on the loose, and we need the cooperation of all the races to continue the peace treaty so that we can extend our peaceful times for another century. That way, the various races could have enough trust to work together. That is the only way to deal with the devil. Right now, the Roth Empire is very strong. They have the intention to overrule the peace treaty, and start another racial war. Once a racial war restarts, the devil could become stronger because of that. When that happens, even if the various races worked together, it would be difficult to subdue the devil. To prevent history from repeating itself, the various races have come to a consensus previously. Today, I hope that we can reach a stable alliance with some restrictions. The Peace Alliance. The goal of the Peace Alliance is to ensure peace in the Norland continent, stand against failure and any inequality and injustice, and at the same time, we will work together to capture the devil, and kill or reseal it. Chapter 1942. In that case, I want a roasted goose. The goblins depended on the exportation of minerals from their mines to everywhere on the Norland continent to make money. In a short span of a century, they were able to build up a strong reserve. The dwarves were minions of the strong races, and therefore became respected craftsmen. They also developed well from their craft. Connie was considered a peace lover. The young girl actually did not have many opinions. She only took on her father's ideals of keeping the orcs away from war. The 2 leaders of the dragon tribes had more of the great old ones in mind. That was also the only thing that would threaten the giant dragons. After the battle at the Thunderstorm Mountains, the giant dragons had come to understand how much danger this matter would pose to them. Therefore, Lewis and Douglas came as representatives for this peace alliance. As for Chaos City, it had a natural mission to protect peace as it was born out of peace. Dexter remained silent all the way. He only clearly expressed his choice of following Alex. This made Mag feel very proud. Dexter's attitude basically showed Lantist's loyalty to him. In addition to Irina, it meant that Mag had enough power to make all the races take him seriously. Of course, the smooth discussion was not totally unrelated to Bruno's death in the morning. After the Roth Empire lost their strong support, the forest trolls, it would be difficult for them to make a bloodbath in the Norland continent alone. If the races could successfully join the alliance, they would be able to go against the Roth Empire. This is the detailed alliance treaty. Please take a look at the duties and benefits of all alliance members, and raise any questions. We can discuss and amend things immediately. Michael got Dicus to give out the treaty to each representative. Everyone looked through the treaty. The clauses were basically what they had discussed, with simple guidelines to frame the duties of each member of the alliance. They had to see peace as their mission, protect it, and get rid of any factors that could affect the peace of the Norland continent. I agree to this treaty on behalf of the 108 Orc tribes. Connie was the first one to make her stand after checking the clauses and exchanging glances with Rex. The goblins consent as well. We can sign the treaty right away, the great elder of the goblins said with a nod. The dwarves also agree, the king of dwarves said in a bright and loud voice. Lewis and Douglas communicated for a while, and quickly came to an agreement to accept this treaty. The treaty is pretty good. I have no opinions. Mag shook his head. He was the one who drafted it. The Night Elves have no problem with it as well, Irina said calmly. Same, Dexter said in his accented common tongue. Since everyone has come to a consensus, let's sign the treaty straight away, and establish the alliance officially, Michael said joyfully. The list of simplified clauses was taken back, and a contract with gold encasing was presented to the representatives. The contract was drafted on the highest grade of contract paper usually used in contract signing between the races. This paper would have quite a restrictive force on the signing parties. Connie picked up her pen, and signed her name without any hesitation. After that, she pricked her finger, and pressed her fingerprint on the paper. A faint red glow flew out from her name, and into her glabella. Mag also signed his name quickly, and pressed his fingerprint. He felt some sort of binding relationship with this treaty. This contract paper indeed had some magical properties. Everyone else also signed their names. Michael raised the treaty filled with everyone's signature with a smile, and said, "The treaty has been signed. The peace alliance will be officially established today. I hope we can all throw away our biases and feuds, and put in an effort for the peace of the Norland continent." Ding! The host had made a great contribution towards protecting world peace. To reward the host's good qualities of loving peace, the host can request any recipe from the system, and the system will satisfy any of the host's requests. Just then, the system sounded in Mag's head. I get rewarded for protecting peace too. Mag was stunned. A world full of love and peace can make one enjoy life, and that is also beneficial for spreading delicacies. As a candidate for the god of cookery, you should see protecting world peace as your mission, and create more conditions that will allow people to enjoy food, the system said sternly. You're such a positive system. Mag nodded with satisfaction. Whatever the system said, in any case, he got a reward. He was still thinking about what to launch as his new product after his leave, and here the system was offering help. He smilingly said, "Anything I ask for. As long as it is related to food, any request is fine," the system said seriously. "In that case, for me, who is protecting world peace, it isn't too much to ask for a Manchu Han imperial feast, right?" Mag said seriously. "Please choose a recipe, and do not raise such an absurd request. I want the Manchu Han imperial feast." The Manchu Han Imperial Feast is a palace banquet that is made up of the essence of all delicacies. If the host really learned the Manchu Han Imperial Feast, that would mean that you've already grasped the essence of Chinese food. You still have a long way to go. Please do not overestimate yourself, the system said sternly. All right, give me a roasted goose, then. Mag changed his request upon seeing that the system was not so easily fooled. Amy had been going on about roasted goose for a very long time. Although the roasted duck had become the best substitute, a roasted goose was still a roasted goose. It was completely different from a roasted duck. Ding! Classic Cantonese roasted goose recipe and experience bag had been released. Please learn it in time. This time, the system was rather quick to accede to his request. Mag accepted it happily since he did not expect to get it. After signing the treaty, everyone discussed briefly the peace treaty tomorrow. With the giant dragons and 7 other forces joining hands, no matter how proud the Roth Empire was, they would never have the guts to provoke the peace alliance. In the city lord's castle villa. Your Highness, Michael gathered the dwarves and goblins in advance. I am afraid they would do something disadvantageous to the Roth Empire, a 10th-tier powerhouse reported to Sean. The other powerhouses in the room did not have very nice expressions. This bunch of scaredy cats. They only dare to gather together to make use of each other. I would love to see what they could come up with before the peace talks, Sean said with a cold smile. Helena stood on the platform, and looked at Sally and the remaining 6 10th-tier powerhouses below. I will be going to the peace meeting personally to fight for more benefits and interests for the elves. Helena looked at them, and prestigiously said, for the last 3 years, us elves' power has been deteriorating. I heard many of our young people were misled, so you guys have to pay more attention, and don't let the others take advantage of my absence to create trouble when I am gone. Yes, all of them replied, avoiding Helena's gaze. In the meantime, Sally will manage the forest on my behalf. Report to her if you have to. She will make the decisions, Helena continued, looking at Sally below. Sally, too, looked at her and nodded slightly. All the elven powerhouses had different expressions, but they all nodded and acknowledged it. Helena had been entrusting Sally with important tasks lately, and grooming her in every aspect. She already deemed her successor. And Sally indeed didn't disappoint her. She became more mature and adept at handling matters. Her power had also exceeded the 8th tier. She had become the leader in the elves' younger generation after Irina. Leave us. Sally, stay back, Helena said calmly. All the elves left quickly, and only Sally and Helena were left in the vast starry cave. Helena took a step forward, and landed gently in front of Sally. With her back to Sally, she calmly said, Do you know why I am handing the elven race to you? Sally looked at her back, and similarly calmly said, There are not many people you can choose in the elven race now. You are getting more and more like her. Helena turned around to look into Sally's eyes, as if she wanted to see into her heart. Sally didn't evade her gaze, and continued calmly, Isn't this what you are hoping for? Helena laughed. In a self-mocking tone, she said, Yes, I have to admit that Irina is the best genius that our elven race has ever had in the past 1,000 years. Then, why do you have to kill her? It's not always good to be a genius. She attempted to overthrow the elven race that we built with our blood. She has touched our bottom line, and yet she remained incorrigible. Killing her is a choice I have to make to protect our elven race. Helena looked rather regretful. Sally bit her lips, trying to make her tone and terms milder. Perhaps our people who have left the Wind Forest have gotten the life that they always wanted to have. Ha, impossible. There was a hint of sneer and decisiveness in Helena's tone. This is a cruel world. The so-called freedom cannot give them any protection. The wandering elves will become the target of the other races' bullying. That is definitely not the life that we elves want. But they are being bullied and toyed with by their own people in the Wind Forest. Is this the life they want? Sally asked in retort. We have to pay a certain price to receive protection. Those heroes who have offered more should receive more rewards. Helena's gaze became fierce, and she looked at Sally with narrowed eyes. Are you questioning me? No, I simply want to know, did you and the Queen think about how to segregate our people, who fought along with you, after you led the resistance and defeated the invasion by the orcs and demons? You were once the high priestess whom they trusted the most, Sally said moderately. If you continue to have such thinking, then you are really a terrible princess, Helena said with a frown. Sally looked at her, and pursed her lips in silence. Helena turned around, and said in a low voice, Go back and think properly. What would the elven race have been now without me and the Queen? Sally remained silent for a moment before she turned to leave. After a long time, a sigh could be heard in the starry cave. Rodu. The palace's meeting hall was still brightly lit. Chaos City has already joined forces with the dwarves, goblins, giant dragons, and the orcs. Alex, Irina, and that mysterious Lantist are also involved. I am afraid we cannot get anything out of them even if we go to Chaos City now, Andrei said to his trusted courtiers with a stern expression. All the courtiers looked grave too. They thought they could sweep through the Norland continent without any resistance from the north and the south together with the Roth Empire's current powerful power after joining forces with the forest trolls. However, Bruno was dead now, and their link with the forest trolls was completely broken. Furthermore, the news they received today even said that the king of the dwarves and the goblin chief had arrived in Chaos City in advance, and already taken part in a secret meeting. Although the Roth Empire was powerful, it wasn't that powerful as to conquer the Norland continent. The alliance of the few weaker races was already giving them a headache. Adding on the giant dragons, Alex and Irina, it made them feel even worse. Now, they couldn't help thinking that if Alex hadn't left the Roth Empire, and had instead become the commander-in-chief, then it would have been the other race's turn to shiver. Your Majesty, Alex is human, after all, and was our commander-in-chief of the Northwestern Army for years. Is it possible to persuade him, and make him come back to our Roth Empire again? A courtier said. Foolish! Has the Earl forgotten that Alex has harmed the second prince and the first prince repeatedly? How can such an arrogant and bizarre person rejoin the Empire? Even if he is willing, we have to be wary of his real intentions. This is tantamount to bringing a wolf into our house. The courtiers started to argue about whether they should invite Alex back to the Empire. Josh sat at the side in silence. All right, Andrei interrupted their argument with a frown. These courtiers kept arguing about useless stuff. He turned to look at Josh. Josh, what's your opinion? Josh got up, and respectfully said, Royal Father, I think since the other races already decided to join forces against the Empire, the peace meeting is no longer important. Why don't we act first and attack them? With the advantage of our powerhouses and cavalry, we can conquer a certain area quickly. What? All the courtiers looked at Josh with shock. The second prince was always gentle, and preferred magic. They didn't expect him to come up with such an aggressive plan. Andrei unfurrowed his brows after hearing that. He nodded, and smilingly said, That's an interesting suggestion. Your Majesty, we have to be careful about this. A courtier got up, and worriedly said, The peace meeting hasn't begun, and the peace treaty isn't over yet. If we attack now, we will be at fault. The other races will attack us. Recently, the attacks from the orcs had lessened, but the cavalry troops sent from the other regions were gradually increasing. The experienced soldiers who had stayed at the borders for some time knew the situation at the northwestern border was going to change soon. The various military zones had been rotating their troops at the northwestern military zone to brush up their combat power through actual combat with the orcs. They had maintained the status quo of an equal number of troops. However, recently, the elites from the other military zones had been continuously posted at the northwestern military zone, yet the original troops stationed there were not withdrawn. This couldn't help but give people ideas. The Orcs had been invading the Roth Empire's borders in the past few years. Many villages were ravaged, and after years of combat, there had been casualties on both sides. The hatred was intense, and the soldiers among the troops didn't mind charging into the Orcs' tribes for revenge if they ever had the opportunity. All they needed now was an order from Rodu, and they would climb over the mountains in front of them, and charge into the Twilight Forest, making those fertile lands and vast forest part of the Roth Empire's territory. At the southern border of the Roth Empire, the numbers of troops had been gradually increasing too. Although the official orders were not issued yet, many military leaders already knew that the Roth Empire would most probably enter war on all fronts soon, putting the Roth Empire's flags on further lands. The hearts of the Empire's soldiers had been inflating like their power in the past few years. The city in the south that was comparable to Rodu was nothing in their eyes. Vic Mountain. The goblins had entered into a state of war mobilization. A goblin elder issued the orders. Evacuate all the important facilities and people into the underground cavern, and monitor the movements of the Roth Empire closely. If a large army appears, do not engage them directly. Fight and retreat according to the underground cavern's state. Make sure that they don't invade too quickly, and preserve our potential as much as we can and lower our numbers of casualties at the same time. The Eason Castle's drawbridge was pulled up slowly, cutting off the castle's contact with the outside world completely. The other races in the castle were all chased out a few days ago, and all the exits were sealed and guarded by troops. Overnight, the situation on the Norland continent intensified. All the races entered into combat readiness. Before the results of the peace meeting were known, these measures would not change. Irina, who had returned to the restaurant, sipped a mouthful of red wine, with Mag sitting across from her, and told him, "This is much smoother than I imagined. Peace is in alliance with the interests of the majority of the races. This outcome is, in fact, expected," Mag said with a smile. "Then, do you think Andrei will still come tomorrow? Or perhaps he will start the war in advance?" Irina asked. "If Andrei starts the war in advance, regardless whether he attacks the west, and invades the Twilight Forest, or he attacks the east, and invades the Wind Forest, given the Roth Empire's current power, he can emerge successful within a short time," Mag said with a serious expression. "Furthermore, once the occupation of those lands becomes a fact, and the Roth Empire ceases to attack the other races, the races whose lands are occupied will have a hard time asking other races to help them liberate their occupied lands. The Orcs have already joined the peace alliance." Irina furrowed her brows. Mag shook his head. "Interests and benefits have always been the priority behind the races' interactions. We will seek justice for Connie, but I'm afraid that even the giant dragons will not engage the Roth Empire directly on behalf of the Orcs. The objective behind setting up this alliance is more of achieving a deterrent effect. However, if the Orcs were really invaded, as long as they can withstand the first round of attacks, and gain some time for the Allied forces, I believe the other races will be willing to send troops to help their ally. This is more beneficial to all the races' interests." Irina nodded thoughtfully. "It was already difficult for the people of the same race to give their all to help you, so it was indeed too much to hope that the other races would defend you. Since this is the case, should we give the Orcs some assistance in advance?" Irina asked again. "Given my understanding of Andrei, he won't dispatch troops without a just cause." Mag shook his head and smiled. "Once he disregards the peace treaty, and attacks the Orcs or Elves, it's equivalent to him standing on the opposite side of the peace alliance, or even on the opposite side of all the races. This will give all the races a reason to attack him. Even if he can conquer the Twilight Forest and the Wind Forest within a short time, doing so will bring upon the combined suppression of all the races, and might even cause the Roth Empire to be encircled and annihilated. Do you think he will give up on his ambition of conquering the other races because of the formation of the peace alliance? Obviously, he isn't such a person. Therefore, I am very curious about how he will react to accomplish his ambition." Mag shook his head gently. Seems like the peace meeting tomorrow will be very interesting. A smile curled up Irina's lips. Father, you guys are finally back. Amy ran downstairs, and looked at the two people drinking red wine together. She placed her hands on her hips, pouted her lips, and angrily said, "Have you guys forgotten about us?" Annie came downstairs with Ugly Duckling in her arms, and looked at Mag and Irina with a smile. "Oh dear, I forgot that my two lovelies haven't had their meal yet. Tell me what you want to eat, and I'll make it for you right now." Mag looked at the two little ones and slapped his head. There were so many matters today that he forgot about Amy and Annie. "Speaking of which, we haven't had our dinner, either." Irina looked at him too. "That's just nice. Let's have a good meal together." Mag pinched Amy's face smilingly. "Tomorrow, Father will make the roast goose for you." "Roast goose? Really?" Amy's eyes glowed instantly. She gulped before turning back to look at Ugly Duckling with an increasingly bright smile. "You have got wings." "Meow, meow." Ugly Duckling called out twice. "I am not a real cat, but you are a real dog." "Annie, what do you want to eat?" Mag asked Annie again. Annie patted Ugly Duckling's head. "You want to eat roast goose too?" Mag flicked a glance at Ugly Duckling. "Meow, meow." Ugly Duckling's orange fur bristled immediately. Mag went into the kitchen, and soon made a table full of dishes. After the last dish of spicy crayfish was served, all of them started eating. Munching on the crayfish that Mag peeled for her, Amy asked, "Father, will the restaurant open tomorrow?" "Perhaps we need to close for one more day to figure out how to make the roast goose," Mag answered with a smile. "The peace meeting will be held tomorrow afternoon." As an important representative, of course he had to attend. With the roast goose, he naturally wasn't afraid that the customers would scold him afterwards. All right. I love roast goose the most." Amy nodded. She always refused to move her feet every time they walked by the roast goose restaurant. Although the roast duck that her father made was also very delicious, she still wanted to know what a real roast goose tasted like. Chapter 1945 Where is home? However, the messenger pigeons that kept flying out of the city showed that not everyone could sleep well. The ordinary people might deem this day a holiday. To Chaos City, this was an annual event because Chaos City had been established on this day. Hence, many children were looking forward to the celebrations tomorrow. Apart from the people in control from all the races, some well-informed merchants also found it hard to sleep now. The Buffett Manor. Sheer stood behind Ian, who was fishing under the moonlight. With a worried expression, she asked, "I wonder, what will be the outcome of tomorrow's peace meeting?" Due to Alex's hard work, the Peace Alliance was already formed. Even if Andre is still ambitious, it's difficult for him to create any trouble now, Ian replied calmly. "You once said that Andre is a calm lunatic. He can do anything." Sheer's brows were still deeply furrowed. "However, he has never done stupid things. This is why he could make the Roth Empire grow stronger continuously." Ian smiled. If he had been a businessman, he would also have been a very successful businessman. Sheer was thoughtful. "In fact, all of us should thank Alex. He is a real warrior. He's brave and strategic." Ian looked at the moon on the water's surface, and lamented, "It's very hard to imagine that a young man like him who has been through the rock bottom of life restrained the way he uses his power when he is at the peak of his might. He knew very well what he wanted to do, and executed it perfectly. Such a young man is rare. Alex is indeed a very outstanding person." Sheer nodded slightly. Although she didn't care much about those so-called powerhouses, this man who was changing the world drastically now still managed to attract her attention. Once, she thought that she was one of the decision-makers among the younger generation. Buffett's gigantic financial empire gave her plenty of power on the entire Norland continent. However, once this world descended gradually into chaos, she discovered that her power wasn't stable. She couldn't even make the world change for her. Meanwhile, the younger generation's powerhouses like Alex and Irina stood out at this time, and changed the world's situation with their every move. They gave people no choice but to listen to them seriously. Ian smilingly said, "Money is the least valuable thing in chaotic times. Only might rules. Money might be useless, but skills are valuable. The trial train route to Vic Mountain is already successful. Once the war starts, we can send soldiers in batches to Vic Mountain." A smile appeared on Shear's face too. Ian slowly turned around to look at Shear with an increasingly bright smile. "The point that I most appreciate about you isn't your sensitivity to finance, but your enthusiasm to innovate and overcome failure. I don't need someone to preserve our business. I need a successor who can bring the Buffett family into the next great age. I am now sure that you can accomplish that very well. I'll try to not disappoint you." Shear nodded slightly. "If the peace talks fail, we Buffetts will take out all our money to support the peace alliance," Ian added. The Moreton Manor. Madame Denise went into Geoffrey's study, where Geoffrey was sitting by the window, and nervously said, "Master, I heard that times are not good now. Maybe we should hide away? I heard that the Roth Empire might invade Chaos City, so it isn't a good idea to stay here." Geoffrey threw a glance at her before coldly admonishing, "Foolish woman. Escaping to Rodu due to the Devil's attack was a last resort. If the Roth Empire is going to attack Chaos City, what if you escape to Rodu? We are just businessmen. We also have assets in Rodu, and we're humans too. As long as we keep quiet, who is going to know?" Denise panicked. "Our Moreton family prospers because of Chaos City. How can we escape at a time like this?" Geoffrey said gravely. "Master, if you are not coming, then I will bring Cyril and his family away. My parents' family has already prepared the flying steeds for us, and we're setting off tonight," Denise said with a shifting gaze. Geoffrey flicked a glance at the door, and coldly ordered, "Get in." Cyril shrugged, and went in unwillingly. He lowered his head and avoided Geoffrey's gaze. Instead, he hid behind Denise, and softly said, "Father, come with us. Let's bring all our assets with us. We can still enjoy life in Rodu too. Perhaps our lives will be even better there." "Useless creature." Geoffrey threw his cup on the floor next to Cyril's feet. The tea and broken porcelain went all over his feet. "If you are not coming with us, so be it. I will be leaving with Mother and the uncles anyway. I won't die together with this city." Cyril leaped 2 steps backwards, and exited the study right away. Geoffrey's hands and mustache were quivering as he angrily said, "Scram! I will take it that you are not my son. Master, we will wait for you in Rodu." Denise didn't want to stay for long, either. After saying that, she hurriedly turned and left. Soon, Denise, Cyril's family, and a few servants boarded the horse-drawn carriages with bags and cases of valuables, and left the Moreton Manor. Geoffrey leaned back against the chair hard and sighed. He looked forlorn. "Grandfather, it's getting cold. Let me brew some hot tea for you." Right then, a figure came in with a small stove. The small stove was placed on the coffee table. The charcoal was burning hot, and the copper pot placed over it soon began to steam. Geoffrey looked at Gloria, who was brewing tea seriously, and asked, "Do you want to leave? Where is home if there is no Chaos City?" Gloria looked up at Geoffrey. Her grandfather, who always looked stern, looked just like an ordinary old man now. She even felt pity for him after seeing his forlorn expression. A gleam lit up in Geoffrey's eyes. "You are not afraid?" "I was a little afraid when we were in Rodu previously, but I am not afraid now." Gloria shook her head. A smile appeared on Geoffrey's face. He looked at the teapot. "The tea smells good. It was given by a customer. He said it was harvested from his own plantation. I brewed it once, and I think that it tastes good," so I want to let you try it, Gloria replied smilingly. Soon, the tea was brewed. Gloria poured a cup for Geoffrey, and placed it in front of him. Geoffrey looked at Gloria with a calm and serious expression, and said, "Tomorrow, I will declare that you are the new head of the Moreton family." Isn't he the dream of 900 million young maidens? I used to think money can solve all problems. I only knew that I might not get to enjoy a meal even when I had money after I met Boss Mag. It has to depend on the boss's mood. Early next morning, the customers no longer felt calm after seeing the new notice hanging on the door. "All right, at least we get to try the new product tomorrow. I'm rather looking forward to it." Indeed, Boss Mag's talents are enough for the ladies to make excuses for him. "I am a humble customer who only wants to have a cup of soybean milk with you, Xiao." Mag stood in front of the ceiling-to-floor windows as he watched the customers leave in disappointment. He murmured to himself, "I suddenly feel a little guilty." Irina came over, and said to him, "What you are going to do today will allow them to have their meals in Mamie restaurant in the long term." Mag tilted his head, and asked her, "What do you want to have in the morning?" "Rainbow fried rice with soybean milk," Irina said without any hesitation. "All right." Mag nodded. Amy also came down, and enthusiastically said, "I want to eat roast goose." Roast goose. Ugly Duckling, which was going to approach them, slowly backed off to Annie's feet, and then hid behind Annie. "Roast goose is too greasy to eat in the morning. Should we have it tonight instead?" Mag replied with a smile. He didn't want to eat roast goose in the morning. After making roast goose for the whole night last night, he needed a break first. "All right, then we will have it tonight." Although Amy was rather reluctant, she still nodded obediently. Mag made a very healthy breakfast. While eating, he told Amy and Annie, "Father needs to run some errands today. Little Amy and Annie, do you want to go play with Big Sister Zixie at the magic potion shop next door, or go to the ice cream shop with the other big sisters?" "I want to go to the ice cream shop. Big Sister Anna and I agreed to meet up and play together today," little Amy said without any hesitation. However, Annie used sign language to say, "I'll go to the magic potion shop to learn magic from Big Sister Zixie." "All right, then little Amy will go play with Anna at the ice cream shop, while Annie will go learn magic at the magic potion shop." Mag nodded, respecting the children's wishes. Mag needed to take part in the peace meeting's negotiations today. This was an important meeting that concerned the Norland continent's situation, and even decided the Norland continent's future. Comparatively, even earning money no longer seemed that important anymore. Ding! The peace meeting triggered a hidden mission. A peaceful environment is beneficial to the promotion of good food. The host will need to influence the meeting's direction, and try his best to maintain the peace on the Norland continent. According to how the host influenced the meeting, you will receive different rewards. Just at that moment, the system's voice rang in Mag's head. "What are the rewards?" Mag cocked his eyebrows slightly. "It will be given according to the mission's difficulty. This mission's reward will be beyond the host's imagination. Could the host please try his best to complete the mission?" "Isn't this an empty promise?" "What's the use of an empty promise?" Mag pursed his lips. "If you can give me a nuclear bomb, I will make sure Andrei will remain hiding in the bunker of his palace forever." "Host, please recognize the fact that this system is a cuisine system. Although I am more well-rounded and more outstanding, you cannot ask me for nuclear bombs whenever you feel like it. This is not in line with our peaceful ideals, and you will easily get punished for it. Save it." "I have never seen a system that gets kicked out of the group chat every day." "What an embarrassment," Mag teased. "Nonsense. I chose to get out of the group chat. Someone as sophisticated as me cannot get along with them. You don't know how hypocritical those systems are. They are always sharing peace agendas. Tisk, tisk, that little big sister. If I weren't kicked out. Tui, I mean, I exited the group chat of my own accord. I have not been punished. Can we talk about it? SHHH. That fellow is everywhere. Mag didn't manage to find out about the reward from the system. However, he managed to confirm one thing: the system indeed had a group chat with many different systems there, and this fellow had been kicked out of it before. We're going out. Amy and Annie went out hand in hand after having their breakfast. Ugly Duckling leaped into Amy's arms and snuggled in. Soon, it made snoring sounds. Snare sent me a missive 2 days ago. The flames of freedom have already spread throughout Wind Forest. They are discussing having a coup after Helena leaves Wind Forest and seizing control, Irina said to Mag. Mag pondered, and then shook his head. It's unlikely to succeed. There will be more higher-level elves joining in this time. Mag shook his head, and said, however, they have already lost the support of the base population, and the elves who chose to side with the night elves are not enough. It's, without a doubt, a lost cause to try to seize control of the Wind Forest. What is more possible is Helena taking this chance to weed out all the sparks in the Wind Forest and extinguish them. Irina pondered in silence for a while before saying, the book that you gave me mentioned that sacrifices and blood loss are inevitable in a revolution. Blood could inspire the righteous, but needless sacrifices are not beneficial to the Wind Forest's liberation. It will be harder to infiltrate the Wind Forest again if we lose this core group. Mag shook his head. Irina frowned and nodded. Then, I will write a letter to him. The annual peace meeting was on the day of Chaos City's establishment. It was also Chaos City's most important and most lively holiday. The city lord's castle had already decorated the streets. People were wearing their best clothes, and going out onto the streets. The busy shops and calls of the merchants all demonstrated the liveliness. The ordinary people still didn't realize that this peace meeting was different from the previous ones. As it was the most important day of the year and the longest holiday, people usually only wanted to go out to shop and eat with their family and friends, or buy new clothes for themselves and their families. The delicacy extravaganza became the place that the Chaos City's residents chose to go. They were mesmerized by all the good food, and the crowd that constantly got into the exhibition hall made the vast hall difficult to move around in. Mag stood on the opposite street and looked over. He praised inwardly that the Food Association had done a good job with this exhibition. As long as they were good, no good foods would be missed out with such a traffic flow. Selling groceries is indeed a good business. Mag's gaze landed on the customers, who were lining up at the seafood shop. Many housewives bought big bags of ingredients, and the elven service staff provided them with an efficient and friendly service. They received excellent reviews. Chapter 1947. That's just his wishful thinking. The representatives arrived one by one. The elven delegation with Helena as the leader was the first delegation to arrive today. The next delegation to arrive was the forest troll delegation. They elected a new leader after Bruno was killed, and kept a much lower profile. Oster arrived at Chaos City with all his 10th tier powerhouses. He was obviously scared by Alex. All the top 10 dragon tribes sent representatives to take part in the peace meeting. Although Lewis and Douglas had joined the Peace Alliance on behalf of the giant dragons, the two of them couldn't represent the interests of all the giant dragon tribes at an occasion like the peace meeting. The situation was also similar with the demons. After the Abyss demons and the Flaming demons were engaged in a war, the internal conflict became very severe. Those pro-war factions that had an advantage were also embroiled in the internal conflict. There was no trust between them, so all the top 10 demon tribes sent representatives to the peace meeting. There were even some smaller demon tribes forming alliances, and sending representatives to the peace meeting. The Roth Empire's delegation was the last to arrive. At the same time, they were also the biggest delegation. The delegation with André Edward in the lead had more than 50 people. Apart from some civil officials, there was also the 10th tier powerhouse's bodyguard team with Richard, the Magus Tower's president, and Dominic, the military's grand marshal. André really treasures his life. He brought over 10 10th tier powerhouses with him. Together with the 6 10th tier powerhouses protecting Shan, there are 16 of them. Michael chuckled when he heard the report. Roland shook his head, and said, perhaps it's to flex his muscles. Bringing 16 10th tier powerhouses out as bodyguards is impossible for any other races. No matter what, it's a good thing for us since Andre appears here today to take part in the peace meeting. Michael stopped smiling, and looked grave. I should go and meet them now. This peace meeting is definitely not going to be peaceful. Before Michael could leave, Dicus came striding in a hurry. Panicking, he said to Michael, my lord, the Abyss Demon representative and the Flaming Demon representative are fighting outside the City Lord's castle right now. Do you want to break up the fight? Isn't this too much? Michael frowned. He didn't expect the enmity of the two tribes to be so severe that they could fight before the peace meeting. Let's go and check it out. Mag and Irina gauged the time, and happened to see a rather fierce fight when they arrived at the City Lord's castle. One party was an Abyss Demon riding on a big pig, while the other party was a Flaming Demon on fire. The wild boar smashed the stone tiles, and the flames melted them. They were having a very fierce fight in front of the City Lord's castle. The other representatives who had just arrived were all watching a good show. The probability of such an incident happening on such an event was extremely low, so why not watch a fun drama before the start of a nerve-wracking meeting? Use some strength. Don't fight like a girl. Mag saw Camilla and her uncle Dracula watching the fight in the crowd. His gaze went over the crowd, and landed on a group of people that was about to enter. The person in the lead was a dignified middle-aged man, who was the king of the Roth Empire, Andre. The 10th tier powerhouse bodyguard team surrounding him with Richard and Dominic in charge actually had as many as 10 people. These 10 powerhouses were not in the same level as those 6 around Shan. They were the most powerful 10th tier powerhouses in the Roth Empire. As if he had gotten a reminder, Andre halted his footsteps, and turned to look at Mag. He gave Mag a meaningful smile. Mag furrowed his brows. He couldn't pinpoint the feeling that Andre gave him. He felt just like a wily old fox. Andre entered the City Lord's castle. Dominic gave Mag a complex glance before going into the City Lord's castle too. This Grand Marshal was a powerful and chivalrous elder and leader in Alex's memory. When Alex began to get famous at the northwestern border, this Grand Marshal had met and taught him many times. The Roth Empire's cavalry had been increasingly stronger under Dominic's leadership for the past 20 years. He had intended for Alex to take over from him, and be the Empire's next Grand Marshal in the past. He even wanted to transfer Alex over and groom him personally. However, Alex rejected that. He quit his military position, and began to roam around the continent to build up his power. Why did Andre make Dominic come to the peace meeting with him at such a critical period? His deterrent effect was way stronger in the Roth Empire's army than being here. Moreover, Andre wasn't short of a 10th tier bodyguard. Even Mag wasn't confident that he could kill Andre under the protection of 15 10th tier powerhouses. I'm afraid Andre has not given up on you, Irina whispered. That's just his wishful thinking. Mag pursed his lips. Stop! 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 At this moment, Michael came out, and yelled in a grave voice. However, the Abyss Demon and the Flaming Demon who were in the heat of the fight ignored him, and continued to fight. Michael frowned, and pulled his long sword. He threw the long sword out in the instant the two of them briefly separated. Dang! The long sword was embedded in the middle of them glaringly. That Abyss Demon and the Flaming Demon halted their advance at the same time, and looked at Michael instinctively. Michael severely said to the two demons, "Gentlemen, this is Chaos City, and we are having the peace meeting today. If both of you have any issues that need to be settled, please settle it after you leave Chaos City or after the peace meeting." Humph! The two demons looked at each other, and huffed unconvincingly, but the two of them stopped fighting. Due to the demons' internal conflict, both of them had to take part in today's peace meeting to fight for their respective tribes' benefits and interests. They had plenty of time after the meeting. The meeting hall is already open. All of you can proceed inside. The peace meeting will commence soon, Michael said to the other representatives watching the fight next. Irina, you guys are here too. Dracula saw Mag and Irina, and approached them with a smile. Then, he sized up Mag, and commented, I thought I could tower over him after I became an ancestor. I didn't expect this chap to be so perverted that he simply killed Bruno. He cannot even be considered as human. Now, this man was right before her. Although he was wearing a black and white mask, his aura made it difficult for one to ignore his presence, and not be constantly wary. Of course, with his capabilities, there was no point for her to even be wary. That's because you haven't had enough grass. Why don't we take this chance to discuss the exhibition? Let's get ourselves a VIP suite first. Those who are here for the meeting aren't lacking money. Irina looked at Dracula with a smile. No, not this time. I am, after all, the face of the vampires. I have my own image to upkeep. Dracula shook his head. Next time. Irina did not insist. Next time. Hi, Camilla greeted Irina. Although there was a period where they frequently ate at the same table, she had a natural fear of Irina, and wanted to keep her distance. Why don't the two of you group up? With uncle and niece together in a performance, there would definitely be more hype. Irina's eyes lit up. I reject, Camilla said without thinking. It was fine if she had grass privately. Making her perform by eating grass would be so embarrassing. She would never be able to do something like that. It's time to go in, Mag reminded them after glancing at the City Lord's castle's empty entrance. We can discuss the exhibition again next time. Irina walked towards the City Lord's castle, and then asked curiously, what's the stand of the vampires for this peace treaty renegotiation? We don't need any land. I think it's fine right now, Dracula said. That's great. Irina nodded with satisfaction at Dracula's reply. Mag looked at Dracula, a little shocked. He seemed to have thought things through clearly. In the mega-sized meeting room, the various representatives filled up the round table. Chaos City had arranged the various representatives' seating so that races with feuds and grudges would not be sitting next to each other to prevent conflict from happening during the peace talks. It was apparent that the City Lord's castle had put much thought into the seating arrangement this time, as the forest trolls and the Roth Empire were separated by the giant dragons. The elves were seated next to the Chaos City representative team, with the demons and orcs between them and the Roth Empire. Other than the core round table, there were also 3 rings of seats where the powerhouses of the various races sat. The various representatives and attendees were almost all present, but in the large hall, it was so silent that only the sound of footsteps of the City Lord's castle staff members could be heard. Irina and Alex have arrived, someone reported by the door. Everyone looked towards the door, and their gaze landed on Alex and Irina, who walked in side by side. These two had taken all the limelight during this period, even more so than when they were roaming the Norland continent. The turmoil among the elves, attracting lightning to strike the devil to reseal it, wrathful murder of Bruno, Josh's ear, Sean's arm. All these things pushed Alex and Irina's name to the peak. Alex was much stronger now compared to 3 years ago, and he had also become undefeatable. He could do whatever he wanted, and no one could do anything about it. They did not even know what Alex looked like now. That black and white mask blocked off all the curious glances, and made him seem a little more dangerous at the same time. His unknown tracks, unknown looks, unknown upper limit regarding his capabilities. All of them added on to Alex's dangerous index. As for Irina, most of her shine had been covered by Alex, and she had already left the Wind Forest. However, she was still the elven princess in everyone's eyes. If there was a woman in this world that could be compared to Alex in terms of aura, it would have to be, and only would be, Irina. However, not everyone liked the two of them. The forest troll representative group watched Alex walk in with reddened eyes, trying their best to curb their emotions. Bruno's death made them lose a very strong leader, and that also made the forest trolls experience a lot of ridicule and mockery. If it weren't for the fact that they could not defeat him, they would never curb their emotions. Oster's gaze on Mag was also rather dark. It was such a terrible feeling to be unhappy with someone, yet be unable to do anything about it. Helena's expression also changed when the pair entered. In a short span of a few months, the elves had turned from a race with above-average capabilities into the laughingstock of the Norland continent. It was all thanks to them. Irina had dug out half of the foundation of the wind forest. Helena had no idea how to rebuild the place. The representatives from the Fear Demon tribe weren't friendly as well. However, they had their heads lowered, afraid to even look at Alex directly. Andrei watched Mag peacefully and expressionlessly. No one knew what he was thinking. Sean was sitting beside Andrei. His empty left sleeve looked really striking. However, he had an equally peaceful expression, as though he did not blame Mag for his arm's loss at all. Mag swept a glance over the people in the area. Basically, everyone making the decisions in each race had arrived. A meeting at such a scale was indeed rare. However, his gaze was attracted to the Chaos City representative team. Other than Michael, Roland, and Novan, the three big leaders of Chaos City, Krasu and Urian were also present. When did Michael convince these two to join Chaos City? Mag thought to himself in shock. Be it their influence or capabilities, Urian and Krasu added to the Chaos City team would undoubtedly increase Chaos City's capabilities by leaps and bounds. It was just a few days ago when Krasu went to the Magic Caster Tournament's opening ceremony, but he was sitting here as part of the Chaos City team right now. That was a little too magical. Mag and Irina sat according to their name labels. Mag was sitting to the right of the Forest Troll representative, while Irina was sitting to the left of the Orcs pro-war team led by Oster. This seating arrangement is done very well. Mag glanced around and smiled. The moment Mag and Irina took their seats, the Forest Troll representatives and Oster looked significantly more nervous. Don't be afraid. I am not one to fight in such a scenario. Mag glanced at the Forest Troll, who had secretly swallowed his saliva multiple times. You know it, I love peace. I know, the Forest Troll nodded submissively. In the dim and empty hall, Josh was sitting on the floor with his hair disheveled. His eyes were bloodshot, and his lips were tightly shut. There was only the bewitching voice resounding in his head. You need to know that no matter how the talks turn out, you will become a useless abandoned child. If your father reconciles with Alex, you will be pushed out without hesitation. If war is to start again, Sean will be given the important role, and you will be completely useless. Are you willing to accept that? I am the only one who can help you. I am the only one really on your side. Put down that ridiculous ego of yours, and accept me completely. I will make you become the real top powerhouse of the entire Norland continent. I will help you thrash Alex and own the unified empire called Norland Continent. You will be the king and the invincible one. Richard followed father down south. I am all alone. How can I control the entire Roth Empire? Josh sounded exhausted and helpless. If I say you can do it, then you can do it. I can help you control all those whom you want to control, and make them bow down to you. The bewitching voice sounded again. We need war. We need more grievance. The more grievance we have, the stronger we become. I can beckon an invincible undead troop to help you conquer the Norland continent. Now, the chance has arrived. Andrei brought the powerhouses who are difficult to control away. Rodu has now been reduced to an empty city. As long as you give me a nod, this entire city will belong to you. Undead troops. Josh's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope. You mean, the more people die, the more grievance there would be, and thus the stronger I become. Yes. In no time at all, you can be even stronger than Alex, and take revenge on him for cutting your ear off. Alex, Josh stood slowly. There was a creepy smile on his pale face. In that case, let's start from the Magus Tower. The night elves were hiding within an inconspicuous tree hollow. Under the dim lighting, there were around 10 masked elves squatting on the ground, looking intently at the young elf standing before them. We currently do not have what it takes. Our numbers are still too small. If we take action rashly, we will just be courting death, and might even destroy the foundation that we've just built. Therefore, we have to push back our plan, and continue to infiltrate until more elves join us, SAHDR said in a hushed voice as he looked at the elves before him. But we might not have such an opportunity with Helena leaving the Wind Forest in the future. If we don't raise an uprising now and take over the Wind Forest, it will only become more difficult in the future. A young elf looked at SAHDR with confusion. Right now, the forest checks on night elves are getting even tighter. A few days ago they caught a few of us. If we go on like this, only more of us will get caught, and they will be able to break us down. Yes. Now, they are even giving a high reward for reporting us. We even have betrayers among us. These members are actively bringing us down, another night elf agreed. The atmosphere in the tree hollow grew tense and stiff. Their appearance together here was a huge risk itself. Initially, they wanted to discuss and ascertain the matters related to the uprising, but now SAHDR was telling them to postpone the uprising. SAHDR listened to everyone with his brows tightly knitted together. He knew about all this very clearly, and even tried saving one of the captured night elves yesterday. However, he had to give up because the security was too tight. This morning, he received a secret letter from the princess. She did not agree with their uprising, and thought that the chances of them succeeding would be very low. This aligned with his judgment. After a round of slave uprising and escaping, there was already a gap in the Wind Forest's elves' hierarchical system to a certain extent. The elves who had not managed to leave were kept under tight control, and it was difficult for the elven troops to infiltrate within. The middle-class elves were also beneficiaries, and it would only be more difficult to get them to go against themselves. To be safe, they had been using a one-way communication style. As of now, there should be a few thousand night elves in the Wind Forest. SAHDR was not clear of the exact number nor who were the night elves. Other than gaining control of the Wind Forest, their motive was also to use blood to trigger the humanity of even more elves so that they would join the troops. This is the princess's opinion. At this stage, it is very difficult for her to come to the Wind Forest to help us, SAHDR told everyone. The princess. The rest of the elves started whispering amongst themselves. They were even more convinced because it was Irina's decision. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just then, there was a sudden rushed whooshing sound coming from outside. SAHDR's expression changed. He hurriedly said, "This is bad. Someone's coming. Retreat according to plan." The elves scrambled up, and rushed out from the back of the hollow. Remember, always watch your safety, and do not expose yourself. The plan will be put on hold for the time being. Lie low and wait for the next meeting. SAHDR reminded them. The other elves agreed, and quickly transformed into birds and beasts as they scrambled off. SAHDR also retreated quickly. However, he did not go far. Instead, he squatted on the branch of a tall, densely covered tree, and he wore his cape the other way around. With a faint glow, the cape camouflaged with the color of the branches, making it difficult for one to see that someone was hiding there. About 3 minutes later, a troop of around 100 elves came to the tree hollow led by a middle-aged elf. After checking the tree hollow, they cursed, and the troops retreated quickly. Such a clear target. It looks like there is already a traitor among us, SAHDR mumbled to himself as he put down his cap, and watched the troops disappear into the distance. He changed the location of this gathering 3 times. The last change was made an hour ago. He was the one who decided the location, but they could find the place so quickly. Luckily, he had a nightingale stationed outside beforehand. Otherwise, all the corps members would be caught today. There are turncoats internally, and there's more than one. Just then, a cold voice sounded from behind him. SAHDR's hair stood on its ends. He quickly slung out a few flying knives while moving back. A thin water shield appeared, and the flying knives stopped right in front of the water shield, unable to advance. Chapter 1950. The Orcs would not be slaves. SAHDR, don't be nervous. I'm not here to capture you, that person spoke. Other than the water shield, that person did not do anything else. In that case, I wonder why you, Princess Sally, are holding me back. SAHDR leaned against the tree trunk, and looked cautiously at Sally, who was standing on a very thin branch. The person who suddenly appeared was no one else, but the one who had been the recent hot topic, the one hailed as the future elf queen of the Wind Forest, Sally. SAHDR would naturally stay as far away as possible from this hot favorite of Helena's. Although he had not heard of her doing anything to the Night Elves, he knew that Helena would definitely find someone whom she could control to be the Elven princess this time. Her appearance here, and his being trapped, told him that he should not have hopes of leaving this place safely. His opponent was too strong, and he was not her match. For her to break through to the 8th tier at her age, although it still could not be compared to the princess when she was at that age, Sally was already considered a genius. Helena had her reasons to choose her. There was no other young elf in the Wind Forest better than her. SAHDR looked at SAHDR, and said peacefully, I am here to tell you that Helena had her backup plan before leaving. If you decide to do anything during this period, you will definitely fall into her trap. I hope you can remain composed. SAHDR was stunned. However, he was still cautious. Why are you telling me all this? Because I am also an elf, Sally told him softly as she looked into his eyes. SAHDR saw pain and torture in her eyes momentarily, and seemed to have understood her intentions. He nodded slightly, and said, Thank you. A piece of advice for you. Don't believe anyone. For the sake of benefits, there are no friends that cannot be betrayed, Sally said emotionlessly as she quickly regained her composure and aloofness, and removed the water shields. Thank you, SAHDR thanked again. He looked Sally in the eye again before putting his hat on, and leaping off the tree. Very quickly, he disappeared among the dense forest. Is what I'm doing, right? Sally stood on the branch as she looked out at the dense vegetation while muttering to herself. There was no reply, only the sound of the gentle breeze passing through the forest. The Grand Peace Talks started officially hosted by Michael. Within a century, there had never been a day like today where all those who helmed the different races gathered in one room. However, there were some conflicts of interest between the races within the century. There were even neighbors who fought for a century. There were new feuds and old grievances, so the atmosphere was not very amicable. It was even rather tense. Krasua and Urian's appearance as representatives of Chaos City also shocked some of the other race representatives. Although everyone knew that these two had been living in Chaos City recently, based on their characteristics, they should not take a side. This was especially so for Krasua as his position in the Roth Empire was even higher than Alex's. However, today, Alex and Krasua had both stood on Chaos City's side, and that made one feel unbelievable. Michael made an opening speech about the century of peace, how the harmony amongst the races had been beneficial, and how the cooperation between races had led to some breakthroughs and changes with obvious results. All these words made Mag sleepy. Thankfully, the forest troll representative sitting beside him was quite a character. He had too many strange expressions and movements sitting beside him, and that made Mag less bored. The peace talks today were basically the negotiations between the pro-peace and pro-war factions. The pro-peace faction had already formed the imposing peace alliance, while the pro-war faction led by the Roth Empire had their own conflicts. The demons were internally divided, and were not strong enough to be significant. It was basically the Roth Empire against the peace alliance. As for the Orcs, Oster could not even settle Connie right now. He had to bring many powerhouses everywhere with him the moment he stepped out of his house. Right now, half of the Twilight Forest had no powerhouses to guard it. The elves were in a rather similar situation. Mag and Irina stirred up a situation, releasing a large number of elven slaves, and even set up the night elves, dealing a critical blow to the Wind Forest's societal structure. Meanwhile, Snare and some like-minded elves were still trying to change things domestically. Just all this alone was enough to give Helena a headache. She would not have the energy to talk about an external war. Back then, the peace treaty that was signed ended the racial war on the Norland continent, and ushered in a period of peaceful development. Now that a century has passed, we are here to restart the peace talks, and continue the peace treaty that was signed a century ago. Michael paused for a while. He looked at the various representatives present, and said, "Today, everyone is here for the promise made a century ago. For this, everyone can raise their opinion, and we can discuss it so that we can come up with a wise choice for the Norland continent. What's the point of fighting? I find the peace treaty pretty good. We, the dwarves, are willing to extend the treaty," the king of the dwarves said quickly. "The goblins are also supportive of extending the peace treaty. There will be no winners if the racial war starts again," the goblin chief said. "The orcs will not be slaves." Connie shouted her slogan as she stood up. She looked at everyone giving her a weird gaze, and swallowed her saliva as she shrank back into her seat, saying with a softer voice, "We are supportive of extending the peace treaty." Oster wanted to stand as well. Mag glanced at him. Oster quickly sat back down. He swallowed and did not dare to stand again. Michael stood up once again. He looked at everyone, and said in a low voice, "I represent the Chaos City to make our stand. Chaos City was born from peace, and because of the peace treaty signed back then, the Basti prison was built. Slowly, it developed into what it is right now, a city where people from different races live harmoniously. We will always be standing with peace, and at the same time, we hope that everyone can stand with peace. War would only make all the races pay a heavy price, and it would be a catastrophic disaster to the citizens. Right now, our enemy is the devil. Based on the mural, war can help the devil grow. Its existence is scary as it could destroy any race. We should work together and first find the devil that escaped the seal, and then reseal it. Meanwhile, we should also find a way to get rid of it permanently. We, the giant dragons, agree with Chaos City. Right now, the most important thing is to find the missing devil. Once it recovers its abilities, or more devils break through their seals, that will mean the end of the Norland continent." Douglas stood up slowly, and said coldly, "Don't forget that day at the Thunderstorm Mountains. We were only facing half of the sealed devil, but we paid a painful price before we managed to reseal it." "I disagree." Just then, a low voice sounded. "One.